hello, and welcome to another episode of the Drew and Vincent Show.
Drew and Vincent Show. Last Jedi.
Last Jedi. We're a little late on this, but you know we got the rest of our lives to talk about this movie and to talk about this trilogy. So we're gonna start today with The Last Jedi.
Oh man, the 8th installment in is the Skywalker saga.
Yeah, I mean,
I think we'll get to that, but
yeah, I think I have a definitive take on why it is the Skywalker saga, but we'll get to that later.
We'll get to that. All right, so right out of the gun, Vincent. I think we should structure this with starting about let's get out of the way the negative press on this film.
I will preface this with saying I like the movie a lot. You know, I really like the movie.
I like it.
But the problem is it's very rough around the edges, and I mean this is a product of two things. One, they didn't plan this trilogy, and it's becoming clear that they didn't plan it because of what Rian Johnson has been saying and other people have been saying. They didn't plan this at all. That's a big problem. Secondly, you got to give this another year. The Force Awakens came out 2 years ago. Star Wars usually once every 3 years. So I feel like if they had another year just to,
buffer it,
just fix up the script a little bit, because all the acting and everything's great, but the script just has a few, really simple issues that would, it would just make this movie a lot more easier to swallow, which is a big problem because, it's just like, it's there's so much good in it, but it's so rough around the edges. It's surrounded by so much so many questionable decisions in the storytelling department where it's just like, ugh. So, that's what I'll start with. But what I didn't like about the movie is the biggest thing I don't like, which I'm grateful that this is the biggest thing I don't like, because a lot of people have huge problems with some of the characters like Luke. But the biggest thing I don't like is the casino Canto Bite sequence.
Yeah.
I think that it kills the pace of the movie. Not actually, no, I'll take that back. It doesn't kill the pace of the movie, but it doesn't improve it at all. It makes it worse. And it's just a part of the movie I don't look forward to watching. And when I am watching it, I'm just like, this movie could be a lot shorter, could be a lot more elegant, but they waste a lot of time on the casino planet.
Yeah.
And
I think to add to that, Canto Pipe for me is definitely I don't like it, and I was telling Vincent that I don't like it for two reasons, and the two biggest reasons of it is that I do find it boring and unnecessary.
Very boring.
And the second reason is that it's using a lot of screen time to take away what I actually want to watch, which is Rey's training with Luke or Rey's struggle with Luke, whatever that may be. I want to see more of those two, because that's what you go into this movie wanting. We all left The Force Awakens and we have that beautiful shot, and
gorgeous.
It sets up for a completely different movie than what was given to us. Which, like Vincent said earlier, this trilogy definitely wasn't planned. J.J. Abrams set up a bunch of questions that kind of just Rian Johnson made his own film, and I can't necessarily blame him. And Vincent said it earlier when we were talking before starting this, is that a lot of this is kind of just the uncontrollable executives just trying to control this movie and make it a production rather than telling a story. And I think that the Canobite stuff really kind of symbolizes a lot of that for me, in the sense of it took away from what I wanted to watch in this movie and gave me a lot of the stuff that I just didn't care about.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate because a lot of, like we've been saying, a lot of the decisions in this movie aren't really Rian Johnson's fault because they didn't have a plan for this trilogy. But I mean, this right here is entirely his fault, and it was entirely avoidable. I know what they were trying to go with this, because you kind of have to have Finn do something in the movie.
Of course,
you have to have Finn do something, and I don't think it's necessarily wrong that they decided to have him try to infiltrate the First Order. I think that's kind of cool, but maybe they should have just skipped the whole Canto Bite thing and had him just going onto the ship. Like, they don't even need a code breaker. They just go on right onto the ship.
Yep, and that's what I'm thinking, and that brings me into, another kind of con about this movie is some of the characters it introduces.
Yeah, there's two major characters it introduces, and one of them's not very good, and the other one is like confuses me somewhat. I mean, the first one that wasn't very good is Rose.
Yeah, Rose should have been the master code breaker to begin with.
Yeah, and
the story should have, if they're going to introduce a character like Rose and make us like her, they should give us a reason to like her. Having a character, and it's unfortunate because a character that I really like in this film also kind of does this, and this is bad scripting if you ask me. Having a character that just kind of like spits out very Disney-esque things and talking about her sister and these, this stuff. It's like, okay, I get that, but I want to like you. I want you to bring something to the table rather than just shocking this guy and guilting him for trying to leave again.
Yeah.
And that's where I think this movie kind of takes a bad turn for me, because they could have introduced Rose, and Rose could have been the master code breaker. So skip all of Canto Bite, keep the runtime of the movie shorter, because I do feel like it drags a little because of Canto Bite, and then just have her have an actual like character. She's just this, what seems to be like a plumber working with pipes all day.
I don't know what she. And then at the end, they have her flying the ships. And the crates, like, why is she flying a ship? I mean, that's like a bit of a nitpick, but like, I mean, it comes back in a big way because she saves Finn. She's only there to save Finn.
She's
but
only
like,
there to.
It doesn't make sense. Like, she's so flying a ship.
It's weird. It's like I almost, and I didn't think about this until now. It's almost like the big reason why they even added this character was to give Finn a love interest to take him away from Rey.
Yeah.
And that kind of, like, that isn't a bad thing for me, because I do like what I think they're setting up right now. And we'll get to that later with Rey's relationships, which I like all of them. I just feel like Canto Bite was long. It took away from the stuff I wanted to see, and it focused on one character that was, to me, kind of lackluster. And that was a big draw away from me. Before making this review, I was originally going to see Last Jedi again with Vincent. We've both seen it a handful of times, and I just thought about, like, that's essentially, with trailers, it's a little under a 3-hour commitment, and a good hour to an hour and a half of that is like kind of stuff that, not necessarily that I don't like, but there's definitely stuff in that hour and a half that I really just don't want to sit through. I don't have the patience for it to watch it, because I've seen it 6 times now. I don't know. Are you on?
I've seen it 7 times.
Yeah.
Well, there's kind of 3 plots going in this movie, and we'll continue the Canto Bite sequence, but I just want to lay this out. There's Luke, Snoke, Kylo, and Rey. That's one plot. Then there's Poe's plot on the ship, and then there's the Canto Bite sequence, and that's how I'd rank them. Like the Luke stuff with Rey, Kylo, Snoke. That's the best stuff. The Poe stuff with Holdo got some very good things about it, but that's like, again, what I'm saying, another year with the script would have corrected that, because it's just a bit messy. There's like a lot of problems with that part, but like the right stuff was definitely there. It was going in the right direction. It was just a little misleaded for a few things in it, which we'll get to. And then at the bottom of the list is the Finn and Rose stuff, which is really unfortunate, because I do enjoy Finn by the end of this movie. He does have a complete arc from The Force Awakens, and he has a lot of stuff with the Codebreaker guy, which is probably one of the best parts of the Canto Bite sequence. Not just because of like his character, but just the stuff he says. He's like, Finn, like, just don't join. Like, there's no such thing as good guys and bad guys. Like, just live free, don't join. And he sells him out. And you get beaten today, or you get blown up today, you blow him up tomorrow, whatever. He's got some great lines in the movie, and he's an interesting character because he's kind of just a fucking piece of shit. Like, just like he's like a thief or whatever.
Yeah, it's just kind of like a. Yeah, he's a scammer.
Yeah, he's just a scammer. Till the end, he's a scammer, and I think it was kind of interesting to have a character like that in the movie. But again, the whole plot that he's involved with was not necessary.
Out of the 3 new characters they introduced,
he's the best one.
He's the best one.
He's the best one for
Great
sure.
acting. I forget what his name is.
Benicio del Toro. Yeah.
Yeah. He did a good job. I like his stutter in it. Like I think he has a very
stutter,
interesting character. I do like him.
Like we'll talk about him more later in the stuff we like section.
Yeah.
But no, the thing Rose is the worst of the 3 new characters. And the thing is, I was okay with Rose. Like throughout the movie, I was like, all right, whatever. She, a companion for Finn to go around and do stuff with, and she has this like story about her growing up on this planet or whatever. All decent stuff. But then at the end, when she saves Finn and she gives that fucking speech, like, oh, you're not destroying what we hate, but saving what we love. I'm just like, it's just fucking stupid.
See, that's the kind of stuff where it goes along with, let me set something straight. I don't even need to set it straight because if you're listening to this, you know this, that, Star Wars has like choppy dialogue, interesting dialogue, Lucas dialogue. There's, sand, like that alone. This is, I would rather watch just actors spew out like really like, wow, nobody's actually going to say that in real life, than see actors spew out just like Disney Channel fucking bullshit.
Just that whole scene, the kiss that comes next. These characters, like, I'm kind of stuck in a conundrum here because, like, part of me is like, oh, if they want to do a relationship, they should have spent more time developing that. But at the same time, like, I don't want them to spend more time developing that plot line. So they should have just not done it in the first place.
It's one of those things where I do like Finn in these movies. I like him. I like John Boyega. I think he does a great job. It's not
very
his
charismatic.
fault. He's very charismatic. He's fun. He's not. You can't really compare him to any other Star Wars character at all, which I like.
In this whole movie,
defect stormtrooper who's very charismatic.
He's trying to run away from the First Order.
Then at one point he tries to run away from the Resistance.
And then at the end you get this great scene where they're bringing the cannon out. He's like, we got to go stand up and fight them. I was like, all right, like
he made a decision and
like,
he stuck by it. It's one of those things, and this goes on a completely different tangent about. This is like I don't even know if I like this or dislike it, but with Finn's character. I think my first couple viewings with the Canobite stuff is that I didn't necessarily mind that towards the end it looked like he was going to die.
Yeah, same.
And it was kind of one of those things where it's like, you gave him a full arc. We've seen this character. He's given us the laughs. And if he dies right now, and I think subconsciously that means I don't have to watch these horrible like settings and scenes that he's in. Not necessarily him, but what they're giving him to do. I'd like that. Like, I think that'd be great. It is kind of like how, you have like your Han Solo in Episode 5. They put him in carbonite because they didn't know if they wanted to kill him or not. But now it's like, take that risk. Take that, you have your trio. Just like
him.
Make this different. Like, have him die. Because then it's like, you can't say you like Finn. He has a complete character. He's great. And it was one of those things where when they save him at the end, that was a little like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like, of course it's Rose and the kiss.
I'm glad they save him just because then Luke comes in and saves the day, which is like, which is why they set it up. But again, don't even like tease him dying if you're not going to actually do it. There's no point in even doing that because.
Yeah, and that's one thing that this new trilogy has really been kind of doing is that they'll tease one thing and go in a different direction. Oh. And I think sometimes it's good. I think there's a couple things that I do like with it. Sometimes I'm just kind of like, eh.
And I think a lot of it in this movie was good, but again, with the Canobite stuff, it
sucks.
It really does suck. And I mean, there are some positives with it, which... They're few and far between. They don't save it, but there are positives with it. And the first one being, the movie kind of lacked locations. Like, a lot of it takes place in space, and a lot of it takes place on one island with Rey and Luke. So it's like, like, there's a lot of room just to throw in another planet. Fine. And the planet they put in isn't even, like, terrible. Like, oh, it's a casino. Like, cool. Whatever. Little casino subplot. And then you get DJ, Del Toro's character, which is a good part of this subplot. And, I mean, just how many times the subplot like subverts your expectations. Like, you know, they first of all, they get arrested for a parking violation. Like, you know, that's how many movies does that happen? Like, you're supposed to get arrested for something substantial. They get arrested for a parking violation. And then there's this whole plan they have, which is just fucking, like, it doesn't end up being anything, which is, like, kind of a problem I have with the movie because they spent so much time on it and, like, nothing came of it. But, like, I kind of like it, too, because it's like, all right, like, this is one of the only times in a movie I can think of where, like, it was just a bad plan. Like, it wasn't a trap, and it didn't work. It was just a bad plan that just fell through. Like, first of all, like, they didn't even need to do it because Holdo had her own plans, which is another problem with the film. She should have communicated those plans, but whatever. The point stands that they didn't even need to go to Canobite to get into the Star Destroyer.
The fact that the only thing that Canobite actually progresses in the story is that ultimately it killed.
Yeah, it
killed.
Yeah, the transport.
The transports, and that's kind of like, you know, like, I'm sure you could have done that some other way. Like,
any other way to do that.
You didn't need. I don't know how long.
I'm glad it happened though, which is, I will give credit to the subplot that it did set that up. But again, there's a better way to do it.
Yeah. It's so weird because you almost forget, like, oh yeah, I guess, like, they went there, they met him, and then he got, because it takes you a second, because I didn't really necessarily realize that Finn is responsible for them all dying, essentially, the Resistance dying, until my, like, third viewing, where I was like, wait a second, like, yeah, I guess he is.
Yeah.
I didn't really think about it because, and I think that may have to go with the runtime, is like, it's so far in between that you're like, okay.
Well, it's Finn and Poe partly responsible.
Yeah,
we'll get to that a little later, but again, like, just their plan they had was so terrible, and they go and they don't even get the codebreaker they're supposed to get. They, first of all, they get thrown in jail, and then they just pick up some random fucking criminal to do the job.
Yeah, that was...
Which, what do you think is gonna happen? And then he sells them out, which was cool because, like, he gives Rose the necklace back. You're like, oh, okay, he's the criminal with he's got a gold heart, heart of gold, whatever. But then, like, no, he sells him out, like.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Subverted my expectations, and it was well done.
Yeah, no.
And another part of the subplot that I just got reminded of was fucking, they had Maz Kanata somehow.
And that's what I was just about to bring up, is that was so just shoot in there, and it looked like a fucking video game.
First, it looks fucking stupid. Secondly, you don't need this character. And third, like, oh, just Poe just happens to know her. Not unbelievable, but like, oh, like, what are the chances that Finn and Poe happen to have a mutual friend?
I know. It's like, what are the chances of that happening?
I don't know. I mean, she wasn't necessary. And if you want to put her in, make her the code breaker then. Like,
yeah, they should have just got her. That would have been, like, so much better, because it's like, or at least we know her.
Yeah,
and, like,
she's an introduced character. I mean, she wasn't terrible in The Force Awakens.
No.
I enjoyed her in The Force Awakens, so...
Fine. I don't know.
I didn't like her in this one, though. I mean...
I think moving on from Canobite, because I think, we're really...
We'll go on to the Poe.
We'll go on to Poe and Holdo. All right. I'm going to skip over Poe because for the most part I like Poe.
No, I like what Poe does a lot in the movie. I think he was used very well, and
good character.
Good character, great acting. Totally fine.
I'm not going to say it's a nitpick because I actually don't like this stuff. I don't care when Poe says, like, because I think he does it twice in the movie. He recites something that Leia told Holdo off screen with the whole, like, if you don't believe in the sun at nighttime, or some fucking Disney shit like that. And then later in the movie he says that we're going to be the spark that lights the fire to burn the Resistance.
It's in the movie a couple of times. Holdo's the first one to say it. She's like, we're the spark that will light the fire that will restore the Republic. That's what she says. But Poe says, we're the spark that will light the fire that will defeat the First Order. So he restates it a little bit. I don't mind it, but
it's just like, for some reason that dialogue,
I don't like the line, but
it bothers me. It bothers me, and I think, and it's so bad because I know I shouldn't be doing this, but I think because I know that these movies are made by Disney, that's what I associate it with. And it's bad because I'm sure I'd be more lenient about the lines if Lucas did
Right.
it. It really is one of those just like by association I don't like it.
Some bias, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like I'm biased.
The thing is, like, I don't love the line, but I just the way Oscar Isaac says it, like, he says it with so much conviction. So I'm just like, all right, like, I can fuck
he's
with
just
it.
He's just a great actor.
Yeah, he
He's a
sells
good
it.
actor.
He sells the line for me. So.
I think he easily has some of the best laughs in this movie too.
Mm-hmm.
He even like just like he's just a great actor when he's in the rust bucket and just that quick what the hell, you know?
Oh
like,
yeah, you know.
It's just like he's funny,
yeah.
like
and I like the first time I watched it, I didn't know what was going on with the him and Hux, like the fucking.
Oh yeah,
hold. I was like, oh, this is kind of stupid. But once I saw what he was doing, I was like, all right, whatever.
Yeah. When I first saw that, and here's one thing that ended up being a positive, but it was a con at first because I thought in the beginning of this movie, I'm like, oh man, this is just going to be The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
They're destroying this resistance base, like all this stuff. I'm like, oh no, like I can't believe they're going to do this for this whole trilogy. But then it's not at all, whatsoever, which I like. But that Hux scene, I was like,
the only problem I have with it is it just sets the tone of the movie like so wrong. Like it starts the movie out with this fucking gag, which
and that's another con I have with this movie though, is because there's too much comedy. And which is so weird because I know that we all assume like, oh, the second act is the darkest. Empire Strikes Back and Attack of the Clones.
That's the only reason I don't like it, because it's just like, all right, there's some comedy in a movie. Like, usually when there's gags in movies like this, like Marvel movies and stuff, like, I'm not... that's not what I'm going to see the movies for, and it doesn't really humor me too much. So I'm used to sitting through these types of gags in movies and just kind of just turning my shoulders to them. Just like, all right, whatever, fine.
Yeah, whatever.
But I just don't think it's the right tone they should have, like, went for in the movie at all. Like, there shouldn't be as much comedy in this one. Just... considering the tone they wanted to establish, and I don't know. I mean, the comedy still doesn't bother me too much, but I kind of wish it wasn't there.
Yeah, I also just wish it was just too much, you know.
Yeah,
and I think it's because one reason why I don't care for it is because of The Force Awakens and because of that last act in The Force Awakens.
I think that was worse for me.
Well, and that's the thing though, because like. That movie, I don't want to say like that's acceptable, but it's a new Star Wars movie. It's like you know what I mean.
It totally fit the tone better in The Force Awakens.
It fit the tone, so it's kind of like okay, but like it was much the whole like oh, look at me or I'm in charge now. I'm in charge.
The whole scene right when Finn and Han land on
that's
Starkiller Base, like all the way up until they meet with Rey, it's just a fucking comedy hour.
I know.
With those characters.
I don't mind the whole, but even that, it's kind of like they throw so many the whole like. That's not how the Force works, and then like,
whole
you're
problem
telling
with that
me like
it's just there's so much one after the other. Whereas in
Yeah,
The Last
exactly.
Jedi, it was spaced out. What I will say about the comedy in The Last Jedi is it's not none of it is like bad comedy. Like they're all like decent gags where it's like all right.
It's the quantity.
It's just the quantity.
Me.
But I am glad it's more spaced out than in the Force Awakens, because there's no scenes in it where it's like, oh my fucking god, like the Starkiller Base, like oh this is a comedy at this point. Like it's spaced out throughout the whole film, which is a problem in and of itself. There shouldn't be as much of it, but
okay,
it is what it is.
Okay, so here's one thing. Also, though, that I think with the comedy is that when we see the Resistance for the first time, and when I mean the Resistance, I really do mean Poe. Mm-hmm. It's with Hux, and that's when we see Hux for the first time, and that's a little comedy hour.
Hux, I mean, the whole movie.
Hux. Here's the thing. I'll get to Hux, but I'm going to put Hux in the positive.
Yeah,
I actually like this guy.
I prefer him in this one.
He's the guy that like you love to fucking see this guy fucking beat up.
Yeah.
Like he really does. You know, he provides slapstick for the fucking films, and he doesn't mean.
No, that's like the good comedy.
That's the good comedy I like. Hux is fine. But what I was saying is that when you see Poe for the first time, you see the Resistance, and then you see the First Order for the first time. It's the Poe and Hux little comedy hour with the whole like holding scene. Mm-hmm. So that's something. when you see Rey and Luke for the first time.
Oh,
it also starts with
all
a gag.
all the intros are kind of
all the intro starts with a gag, and then I don't necessarily want to say Snoke and Kylo were a gag, but there is like a glare when Hux like is leaving the room. He kind of gives Kylo this smirk, and then you see Snoke basically fucking like bitch slap Kylo with the Force, and then Kylo looks like he's about to cry, and it's just kind of like that one. I don't necessarily think is comedy, but they all start with gags early in the movie like that, and there's like every character is established with a gag, and that's like okay.
The Luke one with the lightsaber, that was the worst one of me. It was too 100%. Much because a lot of this movie is trying to subvert your expectations from The Force Awakens, and a lot of it's just a direct response to The Force Awakens. Like, The Force Awakens was this, well, this movie's going to be exactly the opposite.
Which is not how you write a coherent trilogy.
Yeah, it's not how you do it. A lot of the ways they did it, I'm fine with, but because they do it so well. But this was a way where it's just so in your face, like you're like, oh, you thought this lightsaber was going to be a big deal? Well, he literally chucks it over his shoulder.
But there's like so many plot holes with that.
Yeah,
and like there's like 3 like major plot holes with that. I don't know 3, but the first one I have a problem with is Luke in that whole situation of that, and in that Luke is there, and at the end of The Force Awakens, he's in Jedi robes. It looks like he's waiting. He's not just like on this cliff. It looks like he like maybe sensed the Force, knows she's coming, or he's coming. Whoever's coming.
But he didn't.
But he didn't. So it's like, why is he in these Jedi robes? Why, when he gives that look at The Force Awakens, and it's kind of one of those things where like, oh, are you really going to base your whole expectation around a look? But like in this sense, yes, that look at The Force Awakens sets up this whole trilogy. It's like this is going to be an adventure. This is like something important. This is very important. And how they just totally disregard it. He throws the lightsaber back. It really, like, Luke is set up to, like, almost expect Rey, and, like, you know, when she hands him the lightsaber, like, he knows what that means. He knows this happened. And it also just kind of throws away the whole idea of the map in The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
And that's where that's and it's not Luke's fault. It has nothing against Luke. It's more so the idea of, like, why would you set up this whole map that Luke Skywalker made, that R2-D2 has and BB-8 has, and it's hidden, and the Resistance has found it, to get to the Last Jedi temple, for Luke to say that, to not even mention the map and just say that he was here to die.
And the map was such a big part of The Force Awakens.
Well, that's the driving force of The Force Awakens.
It's the whole, I mean, it's basically what drives the whole plot of the movie, but
I just don't like that it was really tossed away like that.
Yeah.
And it's that stuff kind of, and this is my other con with this movie, other than one other con that I'll talk about, is that this movie really does, you know, like Vincent says, it answers The Force Awakens in ways that are just so kind of out of left field. It almost like established its own. It almost established its own movie and finished its own movie in one movie. So many of this, like, you didn't need to necessarily see The Force Awakens to see, like, other than Kylo Ren, which we'll get into. So many of this was kind of like,
at this point, it's like The Force Awakens was just the character introductions to this movie. But the thing about the lightsaber, him throwing the lightsaber, which I still don't like, but it does set the tone for the movie that this is not going to be what you expect. That this is like everything you thought going into this movie, everything you brought in from The Force Awakens, just throw them away, because like that's not going to be a factor anymore. And
how do you feel about that?
I'm kind of fine with it, because the whole thing with The Force Awakens, and like, again, the map being such a big part of it, is like, I'm kind of disappointed that The Last Jedi didn't touch up on it, because it's really inconsistent. But at the same time, like, that was a big problem with The Force Awakens, is just, you know, it was so linear and it was so expected, and everything just followed to a T to A New Hope, and it asked so many questions, and I don't know, like, answering every single one of them, like, including the map, just kind of would have wasted some time. And the map was just so convoluted. Like,
well, you didn't necessarily need the map in the first place, because like the whole idea of Luke made this map, but he didn't tell Leia. And like that's kind of dumb to begin with. No, the thing is, like,
I want an explanation for it, and I think 8 should have provided an explanation for it because that's the path that 7 took. But at the same time, it was such a messy plot, and you could tell now that it's being revealed that there wasn't an overall plan for this trilogy, that like J.J. Abrams intentionally made it confusing and intentionally just tried to raise questions about it, which I don't appreciate, like, from a storytelling standpoint, because it's like if there's going to be a question, there should be an answer.
That makes me feel like it's like J.J. Abrams drops the ball in the sense that he didn't necessarily do this movie. Because he's doing the next one. And he did The Force Awakens, but now you have this...
And the thing is...
This movie in the middle that disregarded your other movie, and now you're going to have to work off this, but now you can't work off...
Part of me wishes he made 8, but another part of me is like, no, I mean, I kind of like how they have their own new directors and everything.
Yeah.
But now that I know that they didn't plan it, I was like, oh, well...
He should have just done 8.
He should have just done 8. And the problem now with 9 is that, like, you have the guy that just had all of his work thrown away in one movie coming back. So we'll get to this later at the end where we'll talk about episode 9, but like, I don't want 9 to just throw away 8. 9 has to go off of 8 now.
Which is so weird though, because even 8, and like this is kind of like a con, even though we're talking a bit about 9, is that it's a con in the sense that it ties up so many loose ends that it provides. Like I remember the first viewing, the second viewing, I wasn't necessarily excited for episode 9. I wasn't excited for episode 9 at all compared to like what I was for The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Because The Last Jedi, I think Vincent and I can agree, we were the most excited for this one, because this one is, of course, episode 7, that's exciting on a different level. That's exciting on, like, this is a new Star Wars movie. I'm just excited to see a new Star Wars movie. What are we going to get? This is more
I was excited to see this story.
I'm excited to see this, because this is, this is the meat and the potatoes. This is, like, what the Star Wars... it really is like, the second act is so important, because even if you look at the original trilogy, episode 4 is a great movie, but that movie didn't need a sequel.
No.
It tied up everything. It didn't need a sequel at all, but it did, and that sequel made the Star Wars trilogy.
Yeah.
And that's why my con with 8 is that it closes... It closes so many loose ends, and it sets up 9 that 9... Well, for me, has to have a time skip.
And I hope it does, but I just really hope he doesn't undo some of the stuff that was in 8.
Oh, I hate that.
He just brings back all of his plot points from 7. Like, oh, Rey is someone special, and
that'd be dumb.
This is the whole thing with the map now. He's got to move on. I really hope he doesn't do that. I hope he doesn't take 8 personally.
I completely agree with that.
Because
then it's just then I think it's safe to say that this was where the prequel trilogy, its curse is that it was poorly executed, but it did have a coherent story. This is where these movies had great acting, they had great sets, they looked great, but there was no coherent story. There was and that's why JJ really does need to play off of 8, but it's almost set up where it's like, here you have this guy who set up 7, and everything was thrown away, but 8 ends with you kind of basically doing, you can make it however you want. If you want, you can write 8 as, okay, it's 10-year skip, or you can write 9 like, okay, it's in the future, so the Republic's strong or the First Order's strong. You have kind of the sandbox, which that's my con about 8, because I don't want to talk about 9 quite yet, is that it just kind of is like, where do you go from here? You have no real, nobody can guess where you go into 9. And I don't necessarily like that, because it just doesn't feel coherent at all.
We'll get back to this later, but we'll go back to,
I think we're on Poe and Holdo.
Yeah, that's what we're supposed to be talking. So, no, we were talking about how we like Poe, and that stays. Holdo, I mean, I can't say I don't like Holdo. I just don't like some of the decisions they made with her, and some of the writing with her. first of all, I mean, she should have told Poe the plan. For sure, that's like the biggest problem everyone's bringing up. She should have told Poe what the plan was.
Yeah, that's just like a stupid. Like I don't think any actual admiral would keep a commander like
in her defense. I'll bring up a few points. She does tell Poe to just follow her order, like stay at your post and follow her orders. So if Poe did that, then everything would have been fine. So she gives that direction, which is fine. But again, she knows, by her own admission, she knows exactly the type of person Poe is. So she should expect that Poe would do something like a little rebellious. I mean, it is a rebellion after all, and he's the most hot-headed person in the ship. So of course he's going to do something. And second defense of her is that at the time, at the very beginning when she takes command, I don't think it's clear that she has a plan yet, because she's asking what are our fuel reserves, all this stuff. And when Finn comes back to talk to her, she's having someone fill up the fuel gate, or having someone fill up the transports with fuel. So I think everyone knew the plan, but she just didn't. Poe just didn't give her a chance to tell him the plan, which is because he kind of just storms in and like yells at her.
Yeah, I mean, I see kind of where you're going with this. I have to stop you because he does ask.
Yeah,
he asks several times.
He asks her when I don't think she knows it yet, because he asked her in the beginning, like, "Oh, what's our plan?" She's still trying to get how much fuel there is. I don't think this is like a defense of this plot, because it could have been way cleaner. But I don't think it's totally like terrible. Like, oh, she should have totally told him the plan, and it's fucking shitty that it's terrible writing that she did. I don't think it's very good writing that she didn't tell him the plan. I still think she should have told him. But again, I mean, there are scenes where you can kind of see what they were trying to do with it, which I don't know. It handles Poe very well, because it shows him kind of taking charge. And,
I think it just establishes that you like Poe.
Yeah,
Poe's funny, but I think he has the biggest heart in this movie. He cares the most, almost. It's, he doesn't consider anything else. He doesn't leave like Finn does. Rey, we'll get into Rey, but I think Poe's great. Holdo, I don't know. I think the whole setting of that, them being on a ship, and it's kind of like on a time strain. I think that's great. I like that a lot. Different. Yeah, I like that. I
like where it went too with the whole coup. I mean, I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh yeah,
but yeah. I just wish it was more meaningful.
Yeah, and while we're talking about that, it goes. I'll just bring up what is still my least favorite shot of the movie, and least I'm like, oh my god. I hate watching it. Is Princess Leia flying in space?
Okay, yeah. So that is a part of this plot.
I don't. And Vincent and I were talking about it not too long ago, and he brought up something that I agree with, is that the reason why I don't like it so much is that it's so goofy to look at.
It just looks. That's the only thing that's bad with it, is it looks bad. Because think, if Luke had done this, no one would have complained. Like, oh, it's fucking Luke Skywalker flying through fucking space. Like, fuck yeah. So that's why even a part of me now is just like. Not like, not even that she's doing it. Like, it does look stupid, but like, I'm even willing to accept that, just because like, I'm kind of just on board with her doing it at this point, because a part of the question, like not a question, but like a problem I had with The Force Awakens was like, oh, going into this trilogy, a big point of excitement is like, oh, we'll see how Leia's doing with the Force, because that was what everyone expected. It was teased in Return of the Jedi, and every piece of EU has Leia using the Force and becoming a Jedi. And then you see 7, and she didn't become a Jedi. She's not a Jedi, but it's like, oh, well, she should still have some Force. And you could kind of see her using the Force in The Force Awakens. Like, she knows when Han dies. But you don't see her use the Force like you do in this movie. And she uses the Force in this movie, which is good.
Yeah.
I like how she uses the Force. I just wish there was a better way for her to have done it. It looks really stupid.
That's just all Rian Johnson's fault, I feel like, on that, because it just looks so. That's one of those things where when I say this movie's runtime is so long, is that even though like, oh, you cut that out, like what are you saving, like 2 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, yeah, you are saving 2 minutes, and like when you do that with a bunch of stuff, it would have been cool just to see her like she's out there,
yeah, like,
and then it cuts like somehow like she's like
show her hand move, and then it cuts to her like someone receiving her on the ship, like, oh, Princess Leia's like back, like we saw her explode, like go into space, like we saw her in space use her hand, we know what she does. And she comes back. It'll be
I think that would have
been
fine.
Fantastic.
That would have been fine
because it'd be her using the Force, and it's just fucking cool. Like, oh, she's flying through space. Like, this is great. It just looks really bad, which is really unusual because this is probably visually the best looking Star Wars movie ever. Like, the visuals throughout the whole movie are fantastic. This was just not one. This was not a good effect.
There's one other frame of the movie that is
what frame?
Just the very first shot of Yoda is
that's definitely,
but everything else that's just like, that's practically nitpicking at this point, but
the Leia thing, I started very negative on it, and I'm generally more positive on it now because, like I said, I do like her using the Force. I think it's cool that she's flying through space. Like, I think that's a cool thing to have her do. I don't think it looks good at all. Yeah. But I've gotten over that. Yeah, like, I've gotten over the initial shock of seeing that, and I'm just like, all right. Like,
it's just weird because I've seen this movie. You know, I saw it practically every time with Vincent, but there's been a couple showings where we would see it with somebody that hasn't seen the movie yet. And then, you know, there was our buddy Braden, and then, you know, my girlfriend. I would, like, look at them to see their reaction to this, and it's just, I feel like the first time
so
seeing
shocking,
it is so, like, what is going on?
But it just looks bad. The music's good during it. Everything else is fine for me.
I just wish I didn't have to see it. Other than that, I think that kind of sums up most of my cons.
I mean, back to some of the Holdo stuff.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of different things that I was kind of thinking they could have done with it when I was watching the movie today. You know, maybe they could have just had her end up being like an actual, like, really incompetent leader, like almost like a traitor of sorts. Like, they could have just had it go that direction, and then Poe actually takes charge. And
Leia sees it.
And or maybe have Poe be the one that has the plan to go down to Crate or whatever. It's just, I like.
It was just so
she's
weird.
She's just such a poor leader that she recognized her most like fervent and almost potentially dangerous follower, and she didn't do anything to rein it in. Like, her first scene with this guy is like literally like, I know exactly who you are. Well, a good leader would use that to her advantage, because she even says like, oh, I do like this guy, like he's a troublemaker. Well, use that troublemaking to your advantage. You know, don't just let it fester and blow up in your face, because again, in her defense, if Poe just did what he was told, no one would have died. But
that's also it also says, though,
she's in charge at the end of the day, so it all comes back to her.
I agreed, but even then, if Poe did what he was told, you know, that's not Poe's character at all, and it doesn't set up the arc that you see Poe have at the end of the movie, because at the end of the movie, Poe, like, you see Poe, he's always trying to blow something up in this movie, like, oh, permission to get an X-Wing, blow something up, you know, let's do this, let's do that. And then in this movie, Poe sees, like, the stakes, and he's looking at the fighters just blow up, essentially, and he's like, we're not going to make it. There's too many people dying, like, let's go back. And that's not the Poe that's in the beginning of this first movie, because he has no sympathy for the bomb squad that died.
Yeah,
you
he's
know?
just like, let's go,
This is an attack, and you follow through. You know, and at the end of this movie, you see him have that kind of sympathy and rationalism, which is good. It's just, the whole, like, Holdo stuff sucks. The idea of oh my goodness, it's just, even as I say it out loud, it's like unfortunate, because thinking about the movie, like, that's more stuff that I don't like. I understand that you need another plot in this movie, but the casino stuff is just bad. I just don't want to watch.
No, that's the worst part of the movie.
That's the worst part of the movie, but even this Holdo stuff is kind of like, Poe is the really driving force in why I can, like, watch it. Because every time I watch it, I do like Poe. Poe is always doing something in these scenes that I like. but the other main character of this, like, you just don't like at all.
Yeah, I'm more fine with the Holdo stuff, to be honest. I just wish it was cleaned up a bit, because it had the potential to be a really good plot, and it has a really great conclusion with her going light speed into the Star Destroyer. That's really cool. It was a great end for that character, but I just wish that was more.
It's a great shot too.
It was a great shot. I just wish it was more earned for that character. Like, I wish there was more emotion behind it. And a lot of people have been saying, like, oh, it should have been Leia that did it. Well,
I don't know how you would write that.
I think that's lazy. Like, that's really lazy, because they know they can get you to feel for it if you have Leia do it. And then if Leia had been the one to do it, people would have complained that she never saw Luke in this trilogy. So, like, Leia has to be alive on the planet.
I agree.
And then people were saying, have Akbar do it. That's as lazy as you can get, because Akbar is only a character that's known by, like, the Star Wars fans. I mean, at this day and age, everyone's a Star Wars fan, but, like, there are a lot of people that are just general moviegoers that go see this movie that have no idea who that guy is. So, and Akbar is only developed in, like, he's books and stuff. He's barely in these movies. No,
he's barely in these movies.
Yeah, Akbar, him dying, like, the way he does, I don't have a problem with him.
I think he has, like, 3 lines in the whole series.
Yeah, and people are saying, like, oh, that should have been him doing the light speed thing. No, it should have been Holdo doing the light speed thing, but it should have been written in such a way that it would have felt more impactful.
Or you don't have Holdo at all, and instead you have Finn butting heads with Akbar, and Akbar is like, you know, you could have had this whole, like, new young, you know, rebellious, like, you know, he has a one way to thinking things, and then you see, like, the old, like, rebellion is like, no, this is how we do it, and then you kind of you do the whole plan,
right?
Like,
if they wanted
old dogs, new tricks,
you gotta have, like, Akbar be
you'd have to have Akbar to be a character.
I think Akbar's actor died, like, recently too, so I don't think that's a direction they would have ever gone with it, but, like, they probably could have gone it. But Holdo, with Holdo, fucking, what was I gonna say? Part of the plot I do like is, you know, they're both on the same cause, her and Poe, but they just butt heads it. Like, the way they want to get things done, like, are at odds with each other. And I like that a lot, because the movie wants you to get you to not like Holdo, but it's like, you know, she's just seeing it from a different perspective than Poe is, and they both want to achieve the same thing, which I kind of like, this internal power struggle thing going on, because it was like, all right, the Resistance is at its lowest point, like, yeah, just it create more drama, like, totally fine, just pack this with drama. So that part of it was good. I don't know, it just didn't, she wasn't a very likable character, though, and a lot of that was, like, by design, like I just said. But I think she should have been a more likable character. And if you don't want to make her unlikable, just make her unlikable and make her just a piece of shit in the end. But they wanted to kind of make her unlikable, but then at the end make her likable. And it didn't really work, in my opinion. But again, I do think this is it is a plot line that overall, like, it does work for me, because, like, I like watching the Poe stuff, and I like seeing how it concludes with her going into Lightspeed and everything. And I think the scenes are well done. I like seeing Poe, like, storm in and yell at her and stuff. And I do see her perspective as well in it. So, again, not the best plot they could have done with it. It could have easily been tweaked, but it's way better than the Canobite stuff. And this doesn't drag the film down for me. It just could have been done better.
I agree. I think it's better than the Canobite, because Canobite I can't stand. But it kind of just makes me feel like, because like, I really am just kind of very, like, you know, I think the movie's too long.
Well, I just think cutting Canobite solves that. Like,
yeah, cutting Canobite solves that, but it almost makes me wish, like, instead of focusing on these kind of 3 narratives of, you know, the Jedi stuff, and then the Canobite stuff, and then the Poe stuff, I wish it would have been, instead of, like, following Rey, following Poe, and following Finn, I wish it would have, following Rey and Kylo, then following Poe, then following Finn. I wish it could have just been, you know, the 2. I like how Kylo and Rey's story are, like, intertwined. I love the communication between those, and I wanted to see more. So I almost wish that you would have knocked out the Canobite stuff and have Poe and Finn, together in this.
Yeah.
Ditch Rose altogether and just do Poe and Finn. And then if you want to do the Master Codebreaker stuff, Finn suggests Maz Kanata. And then that's one of those things.
Which would have been great because, I mean, Poe and Finn are together in this movie at the beginning, so they could have just kept them together, and they had great chemistry in The Force Awakens. You didn't even get to see them that much. They're in the beginning of the movie together, but and they're in some of the later scenes together too. But every time they are on together, they have such a chemistry that people are suggesting that they should, be romantic. So
which is like, you can't get better chemistry than that.
Yeah, so
it's just like it's one of those things where it's just like. That's the kind of stuff where, yes, I do wish there was another year to this movie. I wouldn't be upset waiting another year. I almost wish I did. Mm-hmm. It just, with a con, with the whole where Star Wars is at now is how manufactured and corporate and oversaturated it is now.
Yeah. But that would have been good if they had Finn and Poe together. And then they could have cut Holdo and just had Leia do everything. But... saying that, I mean, I'm fine with them having Holdo in the movie.
It's one of those things where it's like, I didn't write this movie.
Yeah.
It's...
Holdo could have been done better. That's all I gotta say. But the way she was done doesn't totally irk me. The Canobite stuff does. Like, that's the stuff in the movie where I'm like, God, I really wish that was done better. Mm-hmm. I'm fine with the Holdo and Poe stuff as it is right now, but it doesn't bother me as much. But again, it could have... The whole thing could have been done better, and Holdo could have just been Leia, but
that's just not how it works.
Not how it works, but they had to introduce new characters, so yeah, she's a new character they introduced.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they had to, but it's
you gotta have at least one.
Yeah, you can do that.
So they could have had Finn and Poe together doing stuff with the Resistance and have Holdo be the new character.
It's so weird because for me it's almost like instead of shoehorning, Phasma, and you could have made her like the new character to have her one. But I don't know. Moving on from Canobite and Poe though, my last con of the movie is like a slight one. Mm-hmm. And it goes into the positive. So is there any other cons that you have right now?
Not really,
okay.
No.
So here's like my last con with this movie, and it's kind of a half con, because I still love this character, but not as much as I did.
Yeah.
And this is Rey. Mm-hmm. Rey Rey at the end of The Force Awakens is interesting because she's not like Luke was, even though she wears the same kind of things as Luke, has his lightsaber, same planet, all that shit. It's different. Rey touches the saber. She has this vision. We go into this movie almost positive she's going to be a Skywalker, and if not, maybe even a Kenobi or something. You go into this movie thinking one thing about Rey, and you leave with something that a lot of us weren't expecting at all, and I like that. The problem that I have with Rey is that she's too, and I think it was Mike Matei that said this. Is that she's too perfect in the sense of this character doesn't necessarily have any problems. The biggest problem that she has is wanting to know who her parents are, and that is solved in this movie, and I like how it's done. But that's it. We don't see her grow. We don't necessarily see her do, in this movie, Luke says that she's going to be taught 3 lessons, and we only see 2 of them.
That does remind me of an issue I have with it, because I thought the movie was going to be a lot more focused on her, but then you see her a lot in like the first half of it, and then after the lightsaber scene with Rey and Kylo when they're trying to get the lightsaber, you don't see her at all, and then she just randomly shows back up on the Millennium Falcon, which I would have liked to see how she got there, but
it doesn't necessarily explain how she gets the Millennium Falcon at all. She's leaving a ship that's just been intercepted with a ship going
and then Chewie
speed.
Got out of there when he dropped her off. So
I don't know how.
I would have liked to see that, and I don't know. She kind of just disappears towards the end of the movie, and I'll get to another part of it in the like section. It was originally a dislike until I watched it today, but. Yeah, I definitely think I was on such a high going into this movie about Rey's character, and it didn't move it forward any bit for me. It didn't develop her character.
For me, it did cheapen her character to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, but it also goes into a like because I see what they're doing now.
Yeah.
Or I hope I see what they're doing, and I really like that.
Yeah.
But she's too good. She's good-natured. She's, she'll question things. She's powerful.
She makes mistakes, though. I mean, she shouldn't have went to the Star Destroyer with Kylo,
yeah,
she got tricked, she got duped by that, and she does show a lot of aggression in the movie. Like when she's fighting, she's screaming a lot and she attacks Luke to get information out of him, but the movie never presents it as if she's doing something wrong.
Yeah, you're right, because
if you pull back, she is doing a lot of things that are questionable, but the movie always makes it seem like, yeah, she's good, she's right in the end.
Yeah,
but she's not.
Right,
like
but she's not, and that's like, I'm glad you bring that up. I never really thought about it that way. Is that she is wrong, and this is just kind of like, I guess you can accredit that to Johnson again, and where it's like, make it known that, that remind us that that all this stuff isn't okay. Because even being as big as a Star Wars fan as I am, like that stuff, I'm kind of like, I'm watching. I'm like, yeah, like I don't like it when she hits Luke at all.
Yeah.
I just think that's stupid. Like I just don't like seeing Luke Skywalker get hit by this fucking girl.
Right. But
no one.
She's learning, So.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where I would have loved to see her train more. That was a big thing. I understand why people kind of say like, oh, well, she's so powerful for no reason. That stuff doesn't bother me that she's so powerful. I want to see her get better. I want to see her grow.
When I was watching the movie today, I was thinking about, because I did want to see her train more. But I was watching it today and I was like, they actually did do the training scenes to my satisfaction, because this is the third trilogy. We know what the Force is, and we know like how training a Jedi works. We saw it in 5, and I don't need this to be another episode 5 because I have episode 5 to look back on.
Okay.
What the training scenes needed to accomplish in this movie is show the Force as this Luke Skywalker sees it, which is exactly what it did. It showed Luke's perspective, like where is he at right now with the Force, and every training scene showed exactly that. But I do agree, I really wish that some of the training would have focused more on her, because when you're watching the training scenes in this movie, you're really more focused on Luke. He kind of steals the show, and she's kind of put in the background, which kind of contributes to what your overall problem with her being is that she isn't really developed much in this movie, because a lot of that is with the training sequences that they do have are so Luke focused, which is
and it's weird because it's like,
and I do agree with them having Luke focused training scenes,
me too,
but
I like that.
But I think they should have also had a couple Rey focused.
It's just one of those things where it's like, if you're making this new sequel trilogy and you're going to establish a main character, and by the end of this movie, not consider her the main character anymore.
Well, she's not the main character by the end of this movie, and I have definitive evidence that she's not, which we'll get to later. Yeah. But I have a definitive proof that she is no longer the main character.
That's great. I'm excited for that. It's one of those things where, like we said, them not having this trilogy thought out, and it's like, and even. I want this to be put in perspective.
Yeah.
And this is with Star Wars in general. I love Star Wars. It's my favorite franchise. It's my favorite story. It's modern myth. I want this, just the idea of this put in perspective of what we've been getting now, of Rian Johnson kind of like confirming that there wasn't like a coherent story, a concrete story making these. And then you think of the prequels, and you think of, even in like those documentaries, I think episode 1 and episode 3 in their documentaries, George Lucas says there's a scene of him with the script that he's just now finishing, and we're already on a documentary, and they already have sets.
That's why why the original trilogy was so good,
because it was
one script.
It was one script that they had to break up. It was already written. I love that you knew where I was going with this. Is that the original trilogy was almost like. What is it? I don't want to say it's like a fluke, but like if you look at it's just like it was so good. It was so good, and it's almost like unfortunate that it's not unfortunate it was so good. Star Wars is fucking awesome, and those original movies are fucking awesome. And it's just one of those things where
I really do wish it was
I just don't like that
because
that Star Wars for me is like and this solely goes on to episode 9 that we'll talk about, and I feel like we'll just have to talk about this.
It can come on 8 too, because I mean that was my first impression of this movie was disappointment. I mean, like it took me a while to get over the initial disappointment of this movie because it wasn't what we were promised, and I was just under the impression that they had it all planned out. Now that I know that they didn't, I'm more pissed off about that than I am about episode 8.
And that's where it goes, where it's like, you know, I agree. It's just it's one of those things where it's like, man, like, yeah, Disney bought Star Wars, and Disney is a business, and they want to make as much money as possible.
I just think that's a dumb like move by them, like, because they seem to be so like they really have their hands on all of the Star Wars stuff. Like, if you're a director that they don't like, you're out.
And I just don't like
They've
that.
They've done it a few times.
The Han Solo movie. We talk about that all the time, it's so weird to almost like, you know, I feel like sometimes a movie comes out like, you know, like Star Wars, and then like, you know, years later you like watch a documentary, you're like, oh man, Han Solo is going to have gills and all this stuff. Like, you hear about all these weird elusive stories after the movie has already been presented. The fact that, and this goes along with, you know, just modern day, but this Han Solo movie, like, it's almost been like a movie just watching this movie, like, being played out. It's like just so entertaining to just see, like, wait, it was one time going to be like, almost that I thought it was going to be like a college movie.
Yeah.
Like,
and it just seems like, in some aspects, Disney's too, like, they're too corporate in it. They meddle too much with it. But in other aspects, like 7 and 8, it just seems like they gave these two guys, like J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson, complete control over what to do when they should have had a plan. Like, they totally should have had a complete plan, and then you get your individual directors to put their spin on it. But or even higher directors you think would do good with a certain story that you wrote. You
know, and it's one of those things where, like, you think about, like, choosing J.J. Abrams, which I think was at the time a smart move.
Yeah,
he's had a successful Star Trek.
It's a great
trilogy.
Move.
He's the guy. He's the right guy for the job. I would have picked him too.
He's good at reviving.
But then when you think about when you think about how he was so in love with episode 4, and like it was almost like his time to like be a fanboy and just make episode 4.
And look how it turned out. I mean, you watch his TED Talk. He's so he calls them mystery boxes, and that's what happened. And I still think he was the right decision for 7, but it was, you know, he's a guy that likes to put mysteries into a story. Like, oh, he likes to, well, what's this? Every frame you see something. What's that? What's this mean? What's that mean?
The whole idea of having the sword of Skywalker in the first place.
He likes to ask a lot of questions, but he doesn't like to answer them, which is why 8 turned out the way it did. And I can't blame Rian Johnson for that at all. I can only blame Disney.
I agree.
And I don't even have to blame them for anything, because once I found out that they didn't have a plan for this trilogy, this is exactly where I wanted 8 to go. You ask all these questions in 7, and then you have a guy come in and be like, no, we're not doing that. We're not going to make this that complicated where everything's connected and everything has a deeper meaning. We're just going to tell a damn story with characters and relationships and all that sort of stuff, which is, I'm fine with it. That's the way they went. I'm going to have to accept it. But if I want to change things, I'm not even going to start with changing 8. I'm going to start with changing 7. I'm going to start all over if I want to talk about changing things. So since 7's the way it is, and since that's the way they wanted to plan it, then I'm completely fine with 8. I'm totally fine with it. I just wish they would have planned it out more. And that would have changed 7 too. So
I agree.
You can't have that 7 with this 8, because that's just the way it went down. But again, I want to watch the two closer together, because they do take place so close to each other in time. But it feels so different.
And that's another thing that's like weird, because like at the end of this movie, you see the Resistance or the First Order, and they have all the walkers, and you know, the fucking First Order or the Resistance, you know, are down to basically a Millennium Falcon size
I forgot
of people.
that too. And the dislikes, just, I mean, this is also a problem with The Force Awakens, but it's the world building and how they set everything up is so, they don't explain anything. Like, they don't explain, and I feel like it's more of a problem with 7, but they don't explain the whole political structure of the galaxy at all. So it gets to the point where you get to 8 and you're like, wait, why is the First Order, so big? Why are they in such control now after what happened in 7, and why is the Resistance so small?
We have to remember that this movie takes place after the
right
Resistance
afterwards
just blew up
Yeah.
Starkiller Base. And then in the beginning of this movie, the First Order's just blowing up the Resistance base in the last movie. And it's kind of like, well, who actually is in power? Everybody seems to like not have anything now, because it looks like the First Order put all their eggs in the basket with Starkiller Base. They got rid of the Republic, and then the Resistance removes that at the end of this movie. And
You
then
think
the
they'd be equal?
First Order removes their one base, which you don't think is the Resistance only base. You just think it's a base. It's and it's just it's a messy trilogy.
It's very messy, and I think a lot of that has to do with 7. But if they would have explained everything in 7, then 8 would have turned out differently. So
and that's the thing, and that's the thing where I'm at, because 7 just should have been different to begin with.
Well, it's
and it wasn't. And so with this movie, I feel like I like what you're saying about the whole, like, let's just tell like a movie, there's no, like, let's tell I see what you're saying. For me, it's just for me, it's like, I guess I am on the same page, because I just wish the whole thing was mapped out.
I agree. It would have been cool to have some more connections to, like, have Rey be a Kenobi. That it would have been satisfying. But
that stuff I'm not. That stuff I love what they.
No,
do.
I love what they do too.
I love what they do with Snoke, and I love what they do with Rey. I love those changes.
I'm just saying that, like, 7 led you to believe that something like that was going to happen, and 8 threw it away. I do agree it would have been cool to go that direction, but it would have just been, you would need a lot of explanation for it, and it's not necessary.
It's just so weird, because
well, a lot of it goes back to the political stuff I was talking about. Goes back to just how dumb it was to have another Rebellion versus Empire storyline in 7.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're getting kind of off track.
We're getting off track, but the point I'm trying to make is that, like, a lot of people are so pissed that, like, in 8 the First Order is so big and the Resistance is so small and it makes no sense. I think that's more of a problem with 7, because 7 just set up this, like, we're gonna have another Empire versus Rebellion. So 8 just took that and ran with it. I was like, all right, you want an Empire versus Rebellion? Well, we're gonna do that, and we're gonna have it in the coolest way possible, where the Empire is super big and they're chasing them to the end of the galaxy, literally, like, to the point where the Resistance is in a fucking cave.
They're all in one ship.
They're just relentlessly pounding them with fire. Like, I think it's well done with that concept.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. It's just, I just wish that everything was just mapped out differently.
Yeah.
And it's so weird, because you don't expect you to go into this movie and then look back at a different movie and be like, you know what, I don't know if I like that movie as much anymore. And it's like, I don't know how you managed to do that.
And the thing is, I still enjoy 7, and
well, I'll make this. I still enjoy the sequels.
Yeah,
like, I enjoy these movies.
I like watching 7 a lot. It's just like, now that I know that where I thought they were going with it isn't where they were going with it, it's just kind of like takes a little bit out of it. But the questions are a small part of 7, and I think they are answered to my satisfaction in 8. It's just that 7 seems to be building up a different movie that didn't happen. But I don't know. Hopefully I watch 7 and 8 back to back, and it just feels like one long adventure that starts on Jakku and ends on Crate. But I don't know. I'll see. I mean,
I think that'd be great. I would love to watch it where there's no crawl, in the sense of, when I watch episode 7, I go straight, like, I want, like, almost like a cut where I just, like, I watch 7 and I go right into 8 and I just watch it as
I'd like to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I'd like to see how that plays out as well.
I want to go back to the Rey complaint, because I've been thinking about it a bit. And I think a big problem with it is that a lot of her screen time in this is spent developing relationships with other characters, like developing her relationship with Luke, developing her relationship with Kylo, and not developing herself. which is a big problem because you go into this movie thinking that she's the main character, and really 7 sets her up as the main character, and it would have been very satisfying to have her.
Without question, they set it up.
And it would have been satisfying to have her as the main character with how 7 sets it up, but that's not the direction they went with it. So,
which I'm not exactly upset with, because I like where they're going with it now. It's just it does make you look back at 7 and you're like, what were you doing?
They spent a lot of time on this character,
and that's one of those things where I say that
wish it was planned out.
Wished it was planned out.
Because if 7 built up to this movie, I feel like there'd be a lot less complaints. If 7 set this up, but
if 7 just wasn't episode 4 and was just totally different, if the whole
I don't want to really go too much more into 7 because I still do enjoy 7. I don't want to make it seem like I dislike 7.
Agreed.
But it's almost to the point where like I can enjoy each individual movie of this trilogy, but like when I start to piece them together, it's like, oh, I wish it was done differently.
It's just so weird because I almost think of 7 really like, Phantom Menace in the sense that why was that movie there?
Yeah.
Because
it's more important.
Seven's more important, 100%. There's a huge time skip, and there's no time skip between 7 and 8. Then there's a huge time skip between 1 and 2. But it is one of those things where a lot of people, you have that whole machete method where it's like, just drop episode 1, you don't need it. You need the crawl of episode 2, and you're ready to go. For me, it's one of those things where that's not the same case with 7 and 8, but I do think it's funny because after you watch 8, you look back at 7 and see that they weren't going in that direction at all, and it's kind of like, all right, well, why'd you make 7?
Why did this movie turn out like this?
Exactly.
But I overall I am glad where they went with 8. So it's not like it's not a criticism that hinders my enjoyment of these movies at all. It's just one of those things where I really wanted this, like 8 had the potential to be like one of the best Star Wars movies ever. It had the potential to be a top 3 Star Wars movie. And I still think it's on the upper level of Star Wars movies, but it didn't reach that. Just because 7 was great build up, but then you find out it was build up to nothing. So then 8 just ends up being its own movie, which again I'm fine with, but
it's just so, like we said, Vincent put
these
it
are just
the best
wishes.
way.
Yeah.
It's such a wishful, and that's the thing, because this trilogy didn't have to happen.
Yeah, no, and that's that. When I think about that, I'm glad. All of it.
Exactly, because it's one of those things where like, and you can like use this in your daily life with anything. As soon as you like lower expectations and you just realize the reality of everything, that this trilogy didn't have to happen, but it did. Then accept that it's not gonna. They're not gonna make a Star Wars movie that's gonna please everybody now. Episode 7 was so much the same like Episode 4, and people hated that, including myself. And then people hate this movie because it's so different. And it's one of those things where you're never going to please everybody. So drop like your expectations, and then you'll like these movies.
Enjoy it. Because again, like as a kid, I had heard about 7, 8, and 9 were originally planned by George Lucas, but I never thought those movies were going to be made,
I never thought those movies were going to be made too, especially, when you grow up and you see the prequels, and then like a couple of years later when you're like, I forget what grade we were in when Episode 3 came out, but by the time we're in high school and everything, you look back at the prequels with kind of a more young adult, like you're like, oh wait, these movies weren't good. Man, I don't think they're going to make any more Star Wars movies. Then you hear, oh, they are making these Star Wars movies. And it's like, we were watching not too long ago that clip with Mark Hamill saying that he basically signed up on these movies.
Yeah, he thought they were going to be
with Lucas. Yeah. And then they're not with Lucas because Disney got bought out within that year. Mm-hmm. Or Lucasfilm was bought out by Disney within that year. And it's like, oh, well, everything was like just messy. This whole situation.
The only thing that I can think back to is I remember the first time I heard Disney bought Star Wars and that 7, 8, and 9 were going to happen is I think it was the day Disney bought Star Wars. I remember seeing on Facebook, it was a post that says Disney buys Star Wars, there will be a Star Wars movie every year starting in 2015. That's the exact post I saw.
I remember that too.
And that happened. So like, they had a schedule and they stuck to it. That's the best thing they've done so far.
But that is the best thing they've done so far. But it's also something that I don't necessarily want. I don't want a movie every year. I would much rather you have.
I'd rather space it out. Yeah.
Have 7, 8, and 9, 3 years apart. Take a little hiatus. Then if you want a movie every year and it's a spinoff, fucking do it. Like let's do it. I want to see. I want to see every fucking year. Like, you know what, Rogue One. Like, all right, I'll fucking watch that. The next year you're gonna fucking talk about some other stupid shit. Like, all right, I'll fucking watch it. I like it. But that's not how they did it.
All right. Let's get to what we liked about the movie, because we
do like the movie.
We like the movie a lot.
Despite I don't know what our runtime is. We're about an hour and 17 minutes into this, but I swear we like the movie.
We enjoy the movie a lot, and I just like to give a message to everyone. The people say that this movie ruined Star Wars.
Oh, shut up.
All right, the original trilogy is still going to be there no matter what, and even all of the EU books you grew up with are still there, and you can treat it as you want. Growing up, I didn't really enjoy the prequels that much at a certain age, and I was fine just accepting, like Star Wars to me really is the original trilogy. And I'm like, I can watch the prequels and still have a good time, but I don't think of that in the story. And you can just do the same thing. Like, just take the original trilogy as it is. That's your Star Wars story. But yeah, there's these other movies out there too. Just, I don't know. I understand why people are disappointed, because there was a lot of expectation for it. And Luke is a lot of people's criticism, which is not my criticism.
Yeah, which is so weird for me. And like, I agree. And I think, I think it does say something in and of itself, that to have a disclaimer like that, you can pick and choose what is your Star Wars, maybe necessarily isn't a good thing. I think we would all love.
We'd all love to
have
just
one
have,
coherent 1 through 9. That's Star Wars.
That's great, yeah.
But that's not how it's going to happen, and that's just like, I think 8 solidified that Star Wars is what you make it to.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what it does in the movie too.
Yeah, which is really cool. I mean, we'll get into likes right now. I mean, first of all, going into this movie, like, the biggest source of worry I had was Luke, but that was also what I was most excited to see. I
love Luke in this movie.
No, I like him a lot. I think Mark Hamill gives
phenomenal acting.
Yeah, probably arguably his best performance.
Yeah, I was going to think.
I mean, Return of the Jedi. Is
he's
probably
great in Return of the Jedi, but he's so good in this movie.
And again, before I saw anything from this sequel trilogy, I mean, this is not where I wanted Luke to go. This is not where anyone wanted, not where anyone expected him to go. Even Mark Hamill's like, this is not the Luke I envisioned, but that's where they went with him. So I'm gonna watch it, and I'm gonna accept it, and
then just take it for what it is. And I think once you do that, you do like Luke.
Yeah.
Because Vincent and I, we were so like, we're like, oh, if they do this gray Jedi stuff,
gray or dark side, anything
but
like
they
that.
did. I had no idea going into this movie that at the end of it, Luke was going to say, "I will not be the last Jedi."
Yeah,
and I love that. And it's just like, it really like gives even more gravity to what Luke says at the end of Episode 6, saying that he is a Jedi, and then now he's saying he's not going to be the last one either. It's just like, it's so great. It just really
his whole storyline in this movie was done so well.
It really shows that Luke Skywalker is, I personally think, including this movie, and really the 4 movies that we really see Luke, because I think we possibly may see Luke just as much in Episode 3 as we do in Episode 7. So I'm going to say in the 4 movies that we really do see Luke Skywalker is one of the best written fictional characters, period, and in all of literature, if you ask me.
And I'm glad he like went through this sort of arc, because it's like, take him somewhere different. Uncomfortable, like take him somewhere different, and it's totally consistent with what people say, like, oh, he wouldn't have ran away or some of this stuff, but like Yoda and Obi-Wan ran away after after Vader and everything. They fucking ran away,
and then Luke says that Luke loves Obi-Wan and everything, we get that, but like Luke straight up says that Obi-Wan's the reason that Anakin Skywalker was trained, he says that it was a Jedi Master that trained and saw the downfall of Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And he's referring to Obi-Wan. And
Yeah,
he says
and
that the Jedi are all failures.
from his perspective, like, that makes sense because, like, he's personally responsible for Kylo Ren. At least in his mind, he's responsible for him. So he would see Obi-Wan being responsible for Vader. Like, that's how he'd see it.
That's even just like a coping mechanism in and of itself for him, I'm sure, because he's seeing that like this has happened, and he's
not the only one to have done it, and that builds his argument. This is why this needs to end.
And it's like, for you to be upset that Luke ran away, like, then it's like, well, you better start bitching at Obi-Wan too.
Yeah, I mean, Obi-Wan like had the task of watching Luke, but what did Yoda do? Like, he had no fucking task at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, they ran away when it got tough, and so did Luke. And a lot of people are complaining about the Luke and Kylo confrontation, like the flashback confrontation.
Oh, and I think that's one of the best. Like, I love that.
No, I like that because I could see both characters' perspectives, which is exactly what I want out of a plot like that.
When Mark just describes the actual story, because I think you see like
you get both perspectives.
You see like four flashbacks in total.
You get 3.
Is it? Because I think you get the first Luke he's describing it, and you see the burning.
Then you get Kylo's, and then you get the second Luke.
Okay, yeah, it is just 3. I thought that first one was broken up into 2.
No.
But on the third one where you
that's the real one.
Yeah, when you see the real one and you see that, he just thought of everything that he loved. He's a Jedi. He takes pride in that. He's done so well. He has this Jedi Academy, and he sees that, there's an evil right now.
Yeah.
He can foresee it. And so him as a Jedi says, I'm going to stop this. And he turns on his lightsaber, and then right away he's like,
oh, this is not right.
This isn't right. It's like, he's not like he's Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
I don't even want to necessarily was it a mistake? I mean, like,
yeah,
sure,
it probably is a
course
mistake.
It is a mistake, but it's like, do you blame this guy?
Yeah,
he's the most powerful Jedi, arguably.
Do you want him to be perfect? And I have 2 arguments against it. One, people think it's very un-Luke because he tried to kill a family member when he wouldn't have killed Vader. He was so against killing Vader. Well, first of all, he said he was against killing Vader, but no, when it came down to it, when he was pushed to the limit, he almost killed Vader. And he snapped out of it once the Emperor started talking, but he literally had Vader down on the ground with his lightsaber in Vader's face, going to kill this man. And so he didn't kill Kylo. Like,
he didn't.
He thought about it, but he didn't do it.
Well, here's another thing too, though. With that, here you have 2 different perspectives. You have a Luke Skywalker looking at somebody who is currently evil, Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And he sees the good in it. Mm-hmm. He can, Luke never did what he does to Kylo and looked into Darth Vader, but he can feel it. He can feel that there's good in Darth Vader, and he wants to redeem that. So now you have Luke Skywalker, same Jedi. He's looking at currently another Jedi, and he can see the evil in him. He can see that internal struggle. And so it's like, like Luke wants to stop that.
And furthermore, I mean, people are always saying like, oh, Luke saw the good in Vader when Obi-Wan and Yoda didn't. That's what made Luke different. And overall, Luke was right about Vader. I mean, Vader says it. Yeah, tell your sister you were right. Yoda and Obi-Wan were wrong. But you're not getting that young Luke Skywalker anymore. I mean, that's why he was the hero of the original trilogy. He was the new hope. He was the young blood that came in and saw the good in his father. But Luke wasn't there to see this man destroy everything that Obi-Wan and Yoda had come to love. Because that's what Anakin did. He destroyed all of that. So, of course, Obi-Wan wasn't going to see the good in Vader.
Absolutely.
So, with Luke and Kylo, when he sees someone that
potentially will
destroy everything that he has built, Luke himself has built, he's going to have a different reaction to that. He's not going to be the same
and that's just
young
human.
guy.
That's not even a downfall of Luke. That's just being a person.
He's being a person, and he's growing up. I mean, he's built some things on his own now, and he sees someone that's potentially going to destroy it. So, like he said, he's going to have that instinct. Like, and he didn't act on it.
And he didn't act on it. So, it's I don't want to pull this. He's going to kill his nephew. It's like he didn't. Right away, as soon as it's almost like he shouldn't have hit the button, that's turn on the lightsaber. And it's just like, you know what? I don't mind any of that. And oh my god, this is the stuff that really made episode 8 just really, like, I do like episode 8.
Mm-hmm.
Because Luke and Kylo is, like, really, like, you go into this movie and you think, oh, Luke and Rey, like, Rey could be Luke's daughter. Rey, you know, Luke and Rey are going to have all of these scenes together, the training and everything. But then you really see that this movie was about Luke and Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you have a character that we love, Luke Skywalker, who's amazing. And then you have Kylo Ren, who's so new, who's so fresh. Adam Driver is a great actor. And everything about Kylo Ren is just great. And I really like Kylo Ren.
Luke,
And now you have this whole story of our favorite character of Star Wars and our new favorite character of Star Wars, and you see how important they are. You see that
it just ends so satisfying. I mean, just the whole Luke storyline and his storyline at the end with that confrontation on Crate, like, that was fucking amazing to see them duel it out. And I think it's so consistent because Luke, I mean, he tells Leia, which is also another great scene in the movie when he's talking to Leia. But he tells him, like, I can't save him. But then he says, no one's ever really gone. So he knows that, like, Kylo can be saved. Because a lot of people are still complaining, like, oh, Luke, like, going in, he's like, I'm not going to save Kylo. Like, but he would have, like, oh, I'll save Vader. No, Luke knows he's be the one. He's not
responsible for this.
And he can't be the one that saves Kylo because he failed Kylo originally. So he's not going to be the one to do it.
Kind of like how Obi-Wan wasn't able to save
Vader. But he knows that Kylo can be saved. No one's ever really gone.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it's also just puts that much more depth into Luke's character because for Luke, who was turned off from the Force in the beginning of this movie, who essentially was, quote, gone in this movie, even him saying that, like, is establishing that even Luke came back to the Force. Even Luke, like, you know, his the fact that you have at the end of Return of the Jedi such a complete character, and then you just dive even more
dive back into him.
And it's like, well, this guy is just, he's great. Luke Skywalker's great.
You get you get exactly what you want from Luke by the end of the movie. You know, like the crazy powerful Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, you do get that nice, like, because I think I speak for both of us. That when we first saw that, everybody in that theater was so excited. Yeah, it was just so
that's what I came here to see, and like I'm glad I got to see that.
Oh yeah.
And that confrontation between the two was great, like him and Kylo, like exchanging
then when Kylo
dialogue.
Walks up and then he puts the saber through him and you realize and
then
everybody realizes
and then it immediately cuts to
we were so into that scene, and both Vincent and I were like, well, how do you get that blue saber? And then right away we were thinking while the scene is going on, like, oh, it must have been a fake, like you're so invested. And then you see that it was like Luke's developed a completely different force power that we haven't seen. You know, he's managed to make himself in two different places. That's crazy.
Yeah, that was great.
It's just like, I love that. And of course, like, Luke Skywalker is going to be able to...
Oh, and then his death scene was just so well done. You know?
I agree.
I love that scene. Just him looking out at the sunset. Like, the music, you know, the way he's looking out, like, the way it's shot. It just looks so nice. And it just... It brings his story full circle. Like, he begins the trilogy looking out onto an adventure, looking out into the sunset, yearning for the adventure, you know, becoming a Jedi, all of that. And now he's looking onto the sunset as an end, but also a new beginning. Like, now he's going to be a Force ghost. He's still looking onto the sunset, something new. So we're not done with this character, which is great, because he will be in Episode 9 as a Force ghost. Like, I mean, fingers crossed, because seeing how 8 turned out.
I think for sure he'll be in Episode 9, even if he's not like the extent of what he was in Episode 8. I think, and there's two reasons why I think this, and it's both of them are off what they said. Is that earlier I said that Luke says that he's going to teach Rey these 3 lessons. He didn't teach one of them. And so I feel like that in and of itself is just a good way to say, like, okay, this is what this was the other lesson he was going to give. Because I don't know if anybody else is interested in that, but I am. So I hope they do. But then again, after watching 7, you know, don't expect anything like that from these movies. But I also think the quote, when Luke says, "See you around, kid," I think there is going to be a scene in the next movie where Luke looks upon Kylo Ren when Kylo is turned which I hope is what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they kind of have even that Return of the Jedi look, you know, that look that says it all. They don't even need to talk, but just so Luke sees that Kylo is okay and Kylo sees Luke, and there's like that unspoken forgiveness. That's totally fine with me. I'm satisfied with that.
Let's get into Kylo.
Yeah, let's get into Kylo. I'm excited about Kylo because I think Kylo is the saving grace of this this trilogy.
He's totally, and I'll get into right now why he's the main character of not only this trilogy but this movie in particular, even though he doesn't get as much screen time as I think he should have gotten. But you think back to episode 5, all right? The one of the defining features of that movie is you see all the heroes at their lowest point. You see Luke dangling off this fucking wire structure on Cloud City. He's at his lowest point he has ever hit. That's in episode 5. Tell me when Rey hits her lowest point in episode 8. She doesn't. She does not hit any low point. Which character hits their lowest point in this movie?
Kylo Ren.
Only one character does hit their lowest point. I mean, you could argue Leia, but she's not the main character in the movie. Kylo Ren hits his lowest point in this movie. Even though he's the supreme leader, he goes down. He can't finish the job because of his own selfish desires. You know, at one point he wants them to shoot down the Millennium Falcon. He's like so distracted. Then he wants them to shoot down Luke. He's so selfish. He wants everything done his way. He goes down. Luke gets away from him. The Resistance gets away from him. And then you see him walking. The last shot of him is him holding the
golden dice.
The dice. He's just leaning down, looking down. And he's connecting with Rey, and Rey kind of just shuts him off. Even though he wanted to start like a more meaningful relationship with Rey, not necessarily romantic, but he did want to, you know, get together.
I don't think in this movie they
don't try to push. They might in the future, but in this one,
they do.
He definitely finally saw someone that saw good in him. You know, that was a comforting fact, and he said, "Yeah, please join me." There was a lot in that please. So she's shutting him off. Everything's going away from him. He's leaning down. This character hits his lowest point in the movie, which is pretty interesting to think that the villain now is the main character hitting his lowest point in a movie where his side generally won. He himself, it doesn't feel like he won though. So that's why I think he's the main character of this movie and the trilogy.
I think that's very good. I think Kylo Ren has. In episode 7, he's so very interesting in episode 7. He wants to be like Darth Vader. In episode 8, they changed that. He doesn't want to be like Darth Vader anymore, and I like that. He's his own character, but you see that he's
immediately changed that.
But I like that he was like that in the first place because, like, why wouldn't you want to be like that? You know, like you're tempted because of your lineage, and I really like that. And it's one of those things where in this movie, he's sick of everything. He's sick of Luke Skywalker. He's sick of Supreme Leader Snoke. He kills Snoke. Yeah,
and I
love that.
He's had two masters fail on him. Yeah,
and it's just like, how can you expect this guy to be okay? His grandfather was Darth Vader. He has this one guy, you know. One master like sees that there's evil and temptation in him, and
his grandfather was Vader. Both of his parents were too preoccupied in their own careers.
His uncle like pulls a lightsaber on him, and then when he goes into refuge with this other guy, he's an asshole.
Yeah, and the guy wants to use him for his power. I know. And then we get to the scene where he kills him. Great scene.
Oh, I love what they do. I'll talk about Snoke in a second. I'm just too invested in Kylo, but he's such a good character.
Oh, he's so well acted, well written.
Everything about him is great, and I do feel like he is the main character, especially after what you said. I never thought about it like that, but
I really hope they continue with him.
And for me, and it's one of those things where it's huge, but you know, kind of, I'm not going to go too into this because it's more on the episode 9 stuff, but I'll leave it for the episode 9 section, but we'll get back to that. Kylo, he's very, everything about him. One thing I really like in this movie, kind of going back to what I was about to say, is his relationship with Rey. Because even though Rey as a character developing a relationship with Kylo takes away from Rey's development as a character, the development that it has for Kylo Ren as a character is tenfold. It's really showing the depth of this person. And it's one of those things where it's like, personally, for me, going into 8, I thought for sure Rey was going to be a Skywalker, and I was disappointed when she wasn't, only in the sense that, I want this movie's, I have this fixation, 1 through 9 has to be about the story of the Skywalker.
You shift your perspective, though. Like, she's not the Skywalker, but then you remember, there is a
Skywalker.
Yeah.
It is Kylo Ren. He's just as much a Skywalker as Rey would have been if she was Luke's daughter. Just because he doesn't have the same last name doesn't mean he's not a Skywalker. So that in and of itself, as far as I'm concerned, 1 through 8 and hopefully 9, if they really just solidify that Kylo is, what Vincent's saying, that Kylo is the main character, then 1 through 9, the Star Wars saga is about the Skywalkers, and the sequel trilogy has one of the most interesting ones.
And then Rey would serve her purpose too, because she's responsible now for, she has the Jedi teachings, she has the books, and she's going to be more responsible now for restoring the Jedi Order and all that stuff, which is, and for, bringing Kylo back, if that's how they go. So, Rey does have her purpose, which is still good, and going into some of that, I'm glad they went with that. She's no one, because, all right, first of all, if they want to make her Kenobi, let's just cast that out, because that would have been so convoluted, like, any way in which they wanted to explain that. And what would that have done for, like, this trilogy?
Yeah, no, I agree. It would have been more fan service.
And then making her a Skywalker would have been good, but you could tell almost instantly from the movie that wasn't where they were going to go.
No, they have no chemistry at all in the beginning of this movie.
So, yeah, just make her no one. Just make her someone that's just naturally talented in the Force. Like, as they explain it, as Kylo Ren got stronger, his natural enemy on the light side would also get stronger. And going into some of the books, which I don't think is a good defense for any of the movies, but it makes sense in the book canon that a person would be born on Jakku because there's some interesting properties with the Force on that particular planet. So if there was going to be a virgins in the Force or whatever, it would happen on Jakku. Whatever. None of that stuff's important, but the point still stands that, she's just naturally gifted in the Force, and she's no one. She comes from nothing. And
I love that.
Yeah, Anakin Skywalker came from nothing as well. That's where it all started. So, and if you think about it, the Jedi couldn't, not everything had to be blood, because the Jedi couldn't even get married.
Yeah,
so,
I do want to touch on the Anakin Skywalker comment that you said, though, because I was disappointed when I thought that, she's going to be nothing, because I was like, that kind of takes away the importance of Anakin Skywalker, because he came from nothing. But the difference is that, like you were just saying, that Jedi can't breed. Jedi come from just normal people.
Yeah.
And in real life, you do have child prodigies that are just excellent in some things, whether it be math or science, or you see these excellent musicians at such young ages. So even in real life, you can have people that come from normal people and are just naturally gifted, and that's what Rey is. And it doesn't take away from Anakin Skywalker and the Skywalkers as a whole, because Anakin Skywalker still was conceived by a virgin, and the Force made Anakin Skywalker.
He's something totally different.
He is something totally different, and that's important. What I do like, and I don't know if they're going to go this route, but I would like it, but I don't necessarily even need them to go this route. What I need is Rey to convert Kylo to being on the light side, to tie up the whole story, have the nice happy ending. I would love that. If they go somewhere else and I like it, then I like it. And it's like, kudos to them for doing something I, didn't think they would do. But I like, Vincent brought up a couple, like maybe last week, that Rey still has the Sword of Skywalker.
Yeah.
We could see at the end of the next movie that when Kylo does turn, she can fix that sword and give it back to Kylo.
Yeah.
And then that only solidifies when Kylo says that sword belongs to me, like it does belong to him.
Yeah.
He is a Skywalker. He is the next generation of Skywalker. It makes sense. It makes sense that Luke didn't have a kid. Why would he have a kid if he's like obsessed with the Jedi text and the Jedi text that says you can't have this? Like, that only makes sense. And for Kylo to have the sword, and even if it's like split, and I hope if they do bring back that sword at the end of 9 and give it to Kylo Ren, I hope that you can see where they fixed it, because that sword was so broken in the saga. It was either on the light or on the good, you know, or on the bad. It's like that sword really is such a driving force. And yes, I think it does. Personally, for me, it is one of those things that you look back at episode 7 and are like, well, what the hell was that scene where, you know, it's
where
like,
she touches it.
And I don't get that. That's one thing I don't know if anyone's going to have a really good explanation for me. But it happened.
Well, I mean, you could maybe just argue that, like, I mean, it's a fantasy story, so they can go any which direction with it. But like,
maybe it's like the Force saying that this is.
She saw Luke stuff, and she saw
Kylo stuff.
Yeah, she did see Kylo. So, she saw all Skywalker stuff. You know, I mean, she heard Yoda, but like it was something Yoda told Luke.
So maybe it's just like the Force is saying, "Listen, you're the one who's going to like fix all of this."
Well, and she just got like basically the Skywalker story from touching that sword, you know. So it doesn't mean she's a part of it, but I mean she's connected to the Force in a way that she could receive that message. So
okay, I see what you're saying. You're almost taking it as like, I see where you're going with that. I just want to say that I would like, you know, if Kylo Ren and Rey end up having some sort of relationship, I wouldn't be opposed to that.
No, I definitely wouldn't be opposed to that. It seemed like they wanted
chemistry.
Yeah, it seemed like they wanted to go that direction in this movie, but they didn't, which I'm glad they kind of just
give it so you have something going on in episode 9.
Right.
I don't need them to have that.
Part of me when I was watching it the first time and like still kind of would have liked Rey to like join him, because that would have been totally like out of left field.
Agree. I wouldn't be upset with that, but I like what they did.
No, I do like what they did as well. And I mean, every scene with Kylo is good. I'll say that. And even people are complaining about he's not wearing his fucking shirt. But it's like, you know, it's just showing that, like, the Force
happens everyone. Like,
this happens.
Knows when this is going to happen.
Yeah, it happens all the time. Like, this is they're just connected now, and they're sharing an intimate moment, you know, like showing on the screen. This is a visual storytelling medium. You have to visually show that this is intimate. So you have him not wearing his fucking shirt. Yeah, it's uncomfortable for both of them. Like, and both, it's like, you know, she tells him to put on a shirt, and he's like, no. And there's a complaint for 7 was there was no sex appeal, but like now he's like, yeah, fuck it, I'm talking to a pretty girl, like I'm not putting a fucking shirt on. Like, I don't care if that's
this guy's ripped.
Even if that's the explanation, it's just like, all right, fine. Like, oh, put on a shirt. And he's like, no, like I'm kind of into this right now. So like, you know, like have some sex appeal in it. Like,
that's funny. I think Kylo Ren is such. He is the most redeeming. You know, Luke is very.
Luke's great.
I love the Skywalkers. It's so weird because really the worst ridden Skywalker is Anakin Skywalker,
like from the prequel.
Yeah, the one that starts it all, the prequel Anakin. But then Darth Vader's great.
Yeah,
and then like
Luke's
the legacy
great.
of Darth Vader in this movie is still, you know, still going, and that's great. And Luke is amazing, and you know, I love Luke.
Yeah, it's just one part. I mean, I don't want to get too off topic, but I'm just thinking about Hayden right now. You just can't picture that guy. Like, just imagine like the episode 5 scene, like, you know, Vader fighting Luke. Like, you can't imagine fucking that being Hayden. Like, you know, like,
I see what you're saying.
You know, like it's definitely like there's an issue with the Hayden Anakin, but as a whole, the Skywalkers are great. And going more into some of Kylo's scenes, like he has this big scene with Snoke, and it's just a fantastic scene in my opinion. It totally went
so good.
I mean, no one expected that going in. It's great development for Kylo. Like, he fucking kills this guy. Like he serves no purpose for Kylo anymore.
He doesn't, and like people like
he gets rid of him.
That's another thing where this is where I like where the movie goes in a different direction, because 7, even though I guess like the fans really set up Snoke for this movie to be important, 7 like does give enough where I can see why fans would. I did.
Yeah.
You know, I thought like, okay, who is Snoke? I want to know more about him.
Yeah, and I would have liked him to be something, but I'm glad he's not.
No, I'm much more happy that he's not, because it doesn't take away from the Emperor, and it doesn't take away. It's not going to be like these lazy writing.
And it doesn't take. I mean, it's more interesting to have Kylo be at the top. In 9, starting 9, like he is ruling shit. Like,
no, he doesn't have a master.
he surpassed Vader. I mean,
Yeah,
like, which is something you'd never expect him to do, but like he ended up doing it.
I never really thought about that, but he doesn't have a master, and he's the highest ranking officer of his empire.
Not even Vader like got that high. But what was I gonna say? So you have Kylo in this scene doing this with Snoke, and he basically kills Snoke, which tells everyone, listen, Snoke is no one. And everyone came into this movie with Snoke theories, like, oh, who's Snoke going to be? Snoke's going to be Darth Plagueis, this or that. Is he some ancient dark side practitioner? All of this stuff with Snoke. And a lot of the things I'm hearing with Snoke is that he was wasted potential. Like, he could have been something great. They set him up as something great. He could have been something great. What potential are you seeing? Because going in, I'd lie. I'd be lying if I said I didn't have expectations for this character, if I didn't want to see him do something cool. But now looking back and knowing where they went with the trilogy, what potential did you see with this character? Because he didn't do anything that different. He was just sitting in the chair like the Emperor. He was an old guy. He used the dark side of the Force, and
it just makes it. For me, it made sense because it was kind of like, Luke turns himself off from the Force. He's the Last Jedi, the title of this movie. Yeah. And then you establish that Rey comes from nothing, is nothing, and is super strong with the Force for, no reason. He's just naturally strong. So why wouldn't there be another guy who's naturally strong in the Force? And, use it to his, he's in the right place at the right time.
People wanted Snoke to be something big because they're like, oh, who is this person? He was the one to, like, not even Luke could beat him, and like he defeated Luke and split the Skywalker family apart. But that's not what he did. Like, he turned Kylo Ren, like someone who was already vulnerable in this bloodline, to the dark side, and then Luke was so guilty about that he gave up. He didn't even fight Snoke.
And that's the thing, because it wasn't even that. In this movie, Rey says herself that Luke assumed that Kylo turned because he saw the dark. Mm-hmm. Yes, Snoke is trying to tempt this guy, but Rey makes it very clear, you assumed that, and that was your problem. Mm-hmm. He didn't have his, answer,
Right, he was confused.
Yeah, he was confused, and then you got scared,
Luke gave up on it,
Yeah, and Luke gave up on it. And it's it was just a perfect storm for that whole situation. Mm-hmm. And that's, it's just...
it's a big galaxy, and Snoke literally could have been anyone. And
I like that he was just a guy who was in the right place at the right time, had the right power, and just went up.
Because people are so obsessed with having everything be connected, and I agree, for telling a story, you have to have some sort of purpose with everything. It doesn't really make sense to introduce so many arbitrary characters, but in this sense, again, it is a big galaxy, and if you're going to go the direction where someone starts up a new empire, it could have been anyone. And they're just telling a story that this is a guy that had the dark side of the Force. Someone's going to have the dark side of the Force. And he serves more of a purpose just to develop Kylo's character. And a lot of people complain that it just makes him a plot device. Well, and sure, he's a plot device, but he's still fun to watch. Yeah. He's still interesting.
I love what they did with Snoke. I have no complaints about Snoke.
And the great scene,
and when
killing
Luke,
him.
Yeah, and when Luke brings up Darth Sidious again... they said, and he brings up what he did in the prequels. I felt like that tied these movies closer together. And it just solidifies that Darth Sidious at one point was he's the bad guy. And then he did this to Darth Vader. And yes, Darth Vader is now the famous bad guy, but Darth Sidious was the puppet master. Mm-hmm. And there's no crappy writing saying here's this new bad guy who's great, or he's connected because he's a new character. I just like that he was in the right place at the right time.
We've seen the Emperor and Vader before, right?
Yeah, we've already seen it. I like this new take. I'd never thought about it the way that you brought up that Kylo wanted to be Darth Vader so bad in 7. Yeah. And then in 8 he just wants to do his own thing, and now in 9, at the end of 8, he has surpassed Darth Vader just by doing what he wanted to do.
Maybe not in strength, but
he just in position of power.
Just in what he achieved.
Even though, he's in a position of power of a weaker empire.
Yeah.
He is technically stronger than him in that sense. Mm-hmm. I like what they did with Snoke. I like what they did with Kylo. I like what they did with Luke.
The Yoda scene, we'll talk about that. I mean, that was unexpected, and it was a great treat.
I made a comment earlier saying that first shot of Yoda
he looks like shit. Yeah,
he looks like garbage. But the rest of it, the puppeteering or whatever it was,
the dialogue, everything.
The dialogue was great. Frank Oz sounded great. You know, some people are complaining about his voice.
Mm-hmm.
Shut up. Like,
yeah, no, I think his voice sounds fine. Like comparing that to Vader in Rogue One,
oh
like
my goodness.
Yeah, like come on.
Yeah, it's bad in Rogue One.
Oh, it's terrible.
But the Yoda scene is, you know, when I talk to like some people, you know, and I bring up like I like the movie. I really like the movie from the Yoda scene onward.
Yeah.
Because the Yoda scene was such a nice treat. Didn't see it coming at all, and I was like, oh my! Like I genuinely was surprised. I was so happy. And it's one of those things where it does. It's kind of like weird or unfortunate to see that Luke is still learning lessons.
Yeah, but I think I agreed with that when I first watched it. But I think it's more something that like Luke at the end of 6 taught Yoda and Obi-Wan like a lesson that like, you know, even Darth Vader could be turned back to the light side. There's still good in him. So Luke was the one there teaching a lesson. And then he kind of strayed away from that and gave up on all of it. So this is Yoda just kind of nudging him back in the right direction.
It's like a symbiotic, you know. Like I like it. I like it. I like what they did. I like that. You know, I don't know if it was me reading too much into it, but when Yoda says that there's nothing in that library, and he says the word library that Rey doesn't already have. When I first watched the movie, I'm instantly thinking of library, meaning the collection of Jedi text, the actual like. There's nothing in the Jedi text that Rey doesn't already have. But then, like, you kind of think about it, like, maybe Yoda knew, like, that Rey took him. Yeah. That's why he's making this statement for Luke. Just saying, like, oh, yeah, those weren't page-turners. Yeah. And just so Luke would get over that. But, like, in reality, he knows, Luke, Yoda straight up said that, like, no, Rey took this text. Like, you know, like, she already has this. You gotta get over it, yeah. And I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I hope it was. And I think because he says there's nothing in the library... Nothing in the text. That and I just enjoyed
the scenes on that island. All the scenes on the island.
Oh yeah, that island's great.
Luke and Rey, they were great scenes.
I love when
Rey and Kylo like having the Force conversations.
The Force conversations are great. Yeah. I think that really Rey's character develops more with Kylo Ren in this movie than it does with Luke Skywalker. Yeah. And that's just, I think Luke's character develops. Luke's character develops more with dealing with Kylo Ren.
Yeah, I mean, Luke is a very developed. He goes like all the way around in this movie. You know,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
I one of the things that I liked is how, you know, I love when Luke sees Leia again, you know.
Oh, that's a great
scene.
The
hair comment was great, you know. All of this was great. I love that scene. I love when Luke sees Chewie again. Oh, because he's kind of like, what the hell is going on? And then right away you see that he cared about Han Solo.
And then he didn't know that he was dead. So it was your first hint that he didn't. Like, he wasn't connected to the Force anymore.
Exactly. And then when he goes and he sneaks onto the Millennium Falcon, like, he has the moment, he takes the die, and then he sees R2-D2, and that little exchange, you know, that's such a highlight of the movie.
Just real quick, even more evidence that this movie was just responding to 7, like, some of the parts of 7 and shortcomings of 7 is that at the end of the movie when they're on the Millennium Falcon, like the resistance going away, like you literally have a scene with Leia, like Leia hugging Chewie, like, oh, Chewie, like that's what she says, like that's like, so like they had a whole shot of that just because she wasn't hugging fucking Chewie in 7. You have that in 8 now, her hugging Chewie. Like, oh, look, I'm going to make a movie where she's hugging Chewie. You know?
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Just the way the way that's played off is so funny to me.
Funny. Yeah. Like, she makes that whole comment and everything about it. That is funny.
We'll go into some other things we like real quick, just rapid fire. Hux, I mean.
Oh, Hux is one of those things where, you know, I think Hux is so damn like just funny.
Yeah, like, you know, like every time he's on the screen, I'm grinning. You know.
You know, like I just think he's so funny.
Yeah,
like,
he's
one of those things where
you know?
now it's like he is such a buffoon.
And that was also like a response to 7, because in 7 you have him giving these big fucking fascist speeches and going super crazy and angry.
You don't
and so
like him in
and
7.
now it's like, oh, this is just a fucking idiot. Look at this guy. Like,
it's so funny.
Yeah.
I think right now I'd like to stray off course, and I think I want while doing this. We had one of our good friends walk in, stop by the studio here in Harlem, and it's our good friend Brandon Ramirez. He's going to give his thoughts about The Last Jedi real quick.
Complete thoughts on the film.
Yeah, complete thoughts. Do you have any guiding questions to inform the answer I give?
Okay, we're going to give you, I don't think it's going to take you about 2 hours to talk about yourself, but if you want to briefly follow the short guide, you can do an intro.
An intro?
Yeah. How would you introduce how you felt about the movie? Like, overall.
I mean, I wasn't amazed by the movie, but I enjoyed watching it. Just as a whole.
What are your dislikes?
Some of my dislikes were what I felt like a lot of the new plot elements that they introduced kind of seemingly out of nowhere. In terms of some of the new things some of the characters could do with the Force, I didn't quite understand. I didn't quite understand.
Which ones?
The Force projection thing.
Okay.
I didn't quite like that.
Yeah, we like it, but
we love it. Interesting.
I agree with some of the comments you made earlier about liking the Force conversations. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the Rey Kylo scenes?
I thought those were strong.
Do you buy the romance?
The romance? No, but
no.
I thought the two of them together strengthened the characters. I think in the last movie I didn't feel very strongly for either of them, but I had more interest during this movie. So.
All right.
All right.
Biggest pro you have?
I'd say some of the visuals were just really
visuals.
Stunning.
I was going to get into that too with what I liked.
Okay, real quick. I just want your quick opinion on how do you feel about Finn? Black gentleman.
What about him?
Finn?
Yeah,
do you like him?
Quick opinions. I want to hear some quick opinions about some characters right now. Finn?
I still haven't found him quite necessary to the story.
Okay. Rose, the new character?
That was really kind of whatever too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Poe Dameron.
A little better, I mean.
Okay. Holdo, the purple-haired admiral.
Oh, I hated her.
Okay. Princess Leia.
She was fine. I was surprised.
Flying scene. How'd you feel?
That was a little questionable. I didn't like watching that.
Okay. All right. So
real quick. Luke Skywalker.
It was fine. I mean, it was interesting to see the scene that you mentioned earlier when Rey kind of called him out on assuming.
Yeah.
Okay.
So where do you want to see the characters' relationships end up? Who do you want to see end up with who by the end of the saga? Do you want to see Rey and Kylo? Do you want to see Rey and Finn? Do you want to see Finn and Rose? Do you want to see Finn and Poe?
I personally don't need to see any of them together.
None of them?
No, I'm not interested in that.
I don't know. I think there's got to be some romance in a Star Wars
movie.
There's got to be some romance. So I don't know. Rey or Finn and Poe was the one everyone was talking about before this movie. They didn't go there. But I mean, how would you feel about a move like that in the film?
I just don't see why we need it.
Yeah, they don't really have too much screen time together, enough chemistry. It would seem like a little forced. I feel like a lot of the relationships would feel forced. Finn and Rose already kind of felt forced when they kissed.
It felt forced, and now they're 2 movies in. So I mean, they should have taken, if they wanted anybody to be together, I think they should have taken more steps in these 2 movies to do that.
Well, they could have done more Finn and Rey, because that's where it was going in 7. But I mean, I feel like now they're going with Kylo and Rey. That's where they're going. Especially the shirtless scene. I mean, that's what really started it. She's like, put on a shirt, and he's like, no, I'm not fucking putting on a shirt.
Even that, I think, is stretching though.
That was fine.
I thought it was fine. Do you not like that scene?
No, it was a fine. The scene was fine, but I'm saying like
You find him
to use that as like a
all right.
justification for the next movie of them suddenly being together. I wouldn't be.
Okay, wait. I don't know.
I don't think that's the justification, but
I think they'd be good together.
I think they would be good together.
I didn't think that throughout the whole movie until when they're actually talking to each other with the Force. With the Force, I genuinely just thought he was interested in her in the sense of like, wow, like, can you see my surroundings? Like, you're not doing like he's like more like it's not romantic at all. It's not platonic at all. It's just like an enigma to him. The scene where I was kind of like, okay, these two could be together. It really was when he was like, you know, we could leave all of this behind. You know, we don't need Luke Skywalker. We don't need Snoke.
I thought
I
thought the scene where they were gonna get together is when she's talking to him when she's in her little house and she's got the fire and she's like, I've never felt more alone. And he's like, you're not alone. Like that's the first time I was like, all right, like this is something's happening.
I can see why you'd say
they
that.
Touched hands.
Yeah, I can see why you'd say that. I think when he says like you're nothing.
Yeah, but not to me.
To me. Yeah, like it's just kind of like all right. Like now it's like I actually want like these two together are better than Finn and fucking Rey together. I'll say.
How did you feel about Hux?
I agree with the comments you two made earlier. Also, just that he was laughable in this movie, but in a good way. Like, I enjoyed.
He's a buffoon.
Yeah.
Say it. He was a buffoon.
He really was, but I'm totally fine with that Hux direction. You know, like just have a buffoon character in the First Order. Like Kylo's doing enough for me on that plot line that like you can have a buffoon. Like
you need characters to provide some sort of slapstick.
Yeah, you have some slapstick in this film. Well, I mean, you have a lot of slapstick in the film, but he was some of the best slapstick they provided.
He's one of the best slapstick in the saga.
Hux. No, he really is.
You know,
like
he's better
you
than
can't
Jar
think
Jar.
Yeah, I mean, he's way better than Jar Jar. But no, we'll get into episode 9 now. So, what do you want to see in episode 9?
Gosh, I really don't know what I want to see, just because I kind of felt angry at the end of it at the end of 8 because I feel like I know what we're going to see.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What do you think we're going to see?
Well, I mean, I don't know how they're going to drag out the whole movie in terms of like, you know, the Resistance being on their own and the First Order being at large, like for the whole movie until eventually Kylo and Rey confront each other, and then. I mean, I feel like it's pretty inevitable. You're supposed to see Rey ultimately triumph, whether that means killing him or just swaying him back to the...
I don't want to see her kill him.
Okay.
Well, here's one thing I don't think we will see. I don't think we're going to see that little kid.
No. That was just...
He was totally just...
That was just symbolic.
It was just symbolic. It was just growing the universe. Like, hey, look, like, there's more of these people out here. Like, it's not... Just because Luke is dead, like, doesn't mean it's over. Like,
and
people have the Force.
I think that was kind of the visual embodiment of Disney saying that this next movie, and when the Skywalker saber snaps, is the last of this story, the Skywalker saga, which I like. I only want there to be 1 through 9. I like that the first ones are about Anakin.
Yeah, but there's so
Anakin
much more
Luke,
out there. Yeah,
and these ones are about Ben Solo, who is the Skywalker,
and Luke,
and I think 1 through 9 that is Star Wars, and I'm happy with it. And they're saying that there's so much out there. Rian Johnson has his own trilogy now, and
which I don't even think will involve this kid in particular.
I don't think
that's what people are saying, but I don't think
the kid was anything. I think the kid was just symbolism, saying like, listen, like this it serves two purposes for me. It serves that they're making Star Wars movies. That's what it was telling me. Like they are going to make a lot of Star Wars movies. And at the timing when Rian Johnson is confirmed to get his trilogy, that helped solidify that. Like, I know that there's going to be Star Wars movies, and that little scene saying that, like, look, there's Jedis all over the universe.
This isn't the only story.
This isn't the only story that's going to happen. And that's fine with me, because I only want 1 through 9. And I only want those to be the Skywalker saga, and that's great. It also, for me, says that, like, look, Episode 9 is going to have a time skip. This is what I want to see.
That's why I want to see at least 3 years.
It's going to have a time skip. Oh yeah, it's going to be into the future. I don't know how long. I think we're not going to see the Jedi Order building. We're going to see it built. I think we're going to see. I think we're going to see Poe. He's going to be like an admiral of some sort. He's going to be in a good position of power because there's nobody left to take his spot. I don't think, obviously, Carrie Fisher isn't going to necessarily be in 9. I don't know how they would do that I know how they could do that.
Yeah, I don't think she's going to be in 9. And honestly, like, she died and it's like very unfortunate, but like I honestly do think it works kind of well for this, because you didn't need to see her die on screen.
No, I think
how would they have killed her on screen?
I think it is completely respectful for them to off screen like just mention her in the crawl, saying the princess is gone. Rey has started the new Jedi Order. Poe is in charge of the fleet, and Finn is also of a position of power.
Yeah.
Take these characters that like we've seen develop a little bit. We've seen Finn develop. We've seen Poe develop. We haven't really seen Rey develop too much, but we get it. We understand who Rey is and her purpose, and just put him in the spots that they should be in the beginning of this movie. And that's where I think they're going to start with this movie. I think we're also going to see a new Kylo Ren in the sense of this guy is going to be
the complete Kylo Ren.
He's not going to be, kind of like angry all the time, throwing his kind of tantrums, which never bothered me. I like it.
Yeah, I enjoyed that too.
But he's going to be very, I don't want to necessarily say calm, but he is going to be very
I feel like
presentable.
Ironically, he's going to be more Vader-like than he ever was, even though he's not. He's not trying to be like Vader anymore. He's not trying to be
like Vader at all, but he will. Yeah, I think he will be more Vader-like. I think he's going to be very, very, very powerful in the Force.
Yeah.
But I also think Rey is going to be powerful because I think in this time skip she will be learning more. Maybe not necessarily through Luke, but she'll get there.
She'll have the books. She'll have
she'll have the books. I don't think this Jedi Order is necessarily going to follow, the Jedi text. I think it's just like a revision of the Jedi text. I think it is going to have a lot of different possibilities.
No, I definitely think Rey's going to take Luke's criticism of the Jedi Order, all the criticisms like to heart. She's gonna be like, all right, well, Luke did have a point. This is like all the shortcomings that came of the Jedi, so the next order is gonna have to improve on that.
I agree. I think there's that, and then just other things I want to see is I want to see a Rey and Kylo relationship. Doesn't necessarily have to be romantic, even though I'd like that.
I want them to have a lot of screen time together.
I want to see them have a lot of screen time together. I want to see Rey turn Kylo ultimately. I want to see Kylo receive the Sword of Skywalker and almost use that sword or to get rid of his current sword. I want like that sword to defeat the Kylo's current sword. And I want him to have that and be on the light side, and I want him to have that scene with Luke where, they don't have to talk. It can just be a brief moment.
And just a scene like that, or any sort of scene, maybe even have Hayden, just to bring everything all together, tie up the whole story.
I would love a Hayden.
Yeah, I'd like to see Hayden.
And I think, well, why wouldn't there be Hayden? In these movies, you take episode 7, and, like, obviously there's fan service in that, Han Solo's an actual character, but we see Han, we see Luke, we see Leia, you have all these old school characters in these movies, and it's great. Then you see Rogue One, and they throw in Darth Vader, and they throw in Grand Moff Tarkin, and they throw in Princess Leia, and it's like, wow. Yeah. And then you see this movie, and they throw in Yoda. So it's like, you know what? Yeah, episode 9, I'm expecting to see, like, Hayden Christensen. Maybe even I'm not expecting Ewan McGregor at all, but I would like to see Hayden. I don't necessarily need to see Yoda again. I'm expecting Luke. At one point I do want to see Luke and Rey have some sort of like maybe the last lesson. You don't need to show me that they like made up or whatever. You can just kind of start like Luke is already telling Rey new things. Maybe Luke doesn't have the long hair and the long beard. Maybe in episode 9 he does look more.
He has more
like
the projection. Yeah, the projection. He had there.
I think that would be great.
The clean Luke.
I want to see. I want to see Kylo almost like kill General Hux. Like I want because at the end of this movie you do see Hux look at Kylo in such disgust in the scene that you were talking about when he's looking at the die. like Hux looks at Kylo.
Oh yeah, he's just
so
like
angry.
This guy's running the show. Like
I would love to see that Hux tries to turn on Kylo or something because he's so angry that he's not the supreme leader or something like that. I'd love to see something right there because I know that there's a rivalry there that has been there present since episode 7, and it's one of the few things that started in 7 and continued through 8 that I want to see in 9.
I want to see Phasma. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying it, but I'd like to see Phasma come into the movie again and just do something like inconsequential and die. Like,
yeah, I want her to be that joke.
Continue that gag. I mean, we didn't really talk about her too much in this review, but that's just because she wasn't a character of substance. She was just she's hyped up by the media.
Yeah, if you don't see Phasma as a gag, it's like a joke, like, oh, this character is going to be in every movie of this new trilogy, and every time
if you actually like have hype for her, you're gonna be pissed. Like,
yeah, it's like, don't have hype. Like, go into this movie wanting to see her just to see how quickly she like screws up.
Right.
Like,
she. I mean, I think she had her chance for me to impress me in 7, and she didn't. So just bringing her in 8. Like, just even to begin with, I was like, I really don't care about this character at all to begin with. Yeah. So, like,
it's like, whatever.
If they're going to bring her in 8, like, okay. And then whatever they do with her, I'll be fine with. And they didn't do anything with her. So I'm just like...
Phasma was there in the beginning to sell toys. And it's just kind of like, all right.
And now she's just a joke. I hope they continue that joke, though, to really solidify it and get everyone on board with it. Because then they won't be as pissed off about it.
No, and here's the thing though, because in episode 9, if Phasma comes back and she actually does have like a
that'd be
I'd be confused. I almost wouldn't want it because I'd just be like, okay, like what are you doing with this person? You guys just can't make up your mind. Like, I wouldn't. I don't think I'd want that, but
I mean, you basically touched on everything I'd like to see in the movie and episode 9, but. Like I said earlier, I was a little worried about Abrams coming in because, like I said, a lot of his work was kind of thrown in the trash by episode 8.
Yeah.
But thinking back at that, I mean, like I said, J.J. Abrams is very good at asking questions, but not very good at answering them. But the good part about this is that pretty much all the questions he asked in episode 7 were already answered. And in episode 9, obviously, new questions don't have to be asked. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe at the beginning of the movie and answer one at the end of the movie. But he doesn't have to do too much asking questions. So he can just focus on just sitting down and writing a movie. And looking back, it'll be fine. Like, all right, you had Abrams come in the beginning, ask a lot of questions that got you excited. Then you had someone come in the middle that answered all of those questions in a way that you didn't expect to keep it interesting. And then you have Abrams come back in and finish up the story. And he's not boxed into what he's usually doing, asking all these questions and not answering them. He can just write a story. So hopefully that's the direction he goes in it and doesn't try to rectify all the missed opportunities in his mind that 8 kind of missed on.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And we should keep in mind that JJ was an executive producer on this movie.
Yeah, so right.
I'm sure that he's not going
I'm sure he's not
the
pissed
next
about
bitter.
8. Yeah.
I mean, even though I could see why he would, but it's just so bizarre.
I really hope he was familiar with this movie throughout the process and that he had time, because I think he just presented like a story treatment of 9 to Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney or whatever he is. But I really hope he's been thinking about this for a while, because from what I've been hearing, Johnson didn't even get the chance to see episode 7 when it came out, when it was finished, before he had to start writing 8. Like, he kind of saw some of the pre-production versions of 7 and all that stuff, like the early drafts and early versions, but he had to start working on 8 like pretty soon. So it was a very rushed process. So I really hope that Abrams, being an executive producer of 8, had some time to really sit and see where this story went and think about it. I mean, he just was brought in as the director, which kind of sucks because, I mean, who knows how long the other guy was working on it. But, I mean, they're putting their faith in Abrams, so I can only hope that he's the right person to finish this one up. And he did a good job with 7, and he's a very good director, so I don't have any worries on that front. But
I will say that to really bring me to ultimately liking this trilogy a lot is play it safe and make Kylo the main character.
Yeah,
no questions.
Please,
asked.
focus on
front,
this guy.
I want to end the movie with him having the most screen time. That's what I want.
Yeah, and I'd like Rey to be a part of the story.
Oh, of course. Don't just throw away.
Don't
Rey
throw
off
away,
to
but
the
like
side,
make her a smaller part of the story now because that's the direction they want to go. Make Finn a smaller part of the story, but touch up on him. You know,
touch up on him. Same with
finish
Poe.
his storyline. Poe, yeah, all those guys, like
gotta have that C-3PO R2-D2.
Yeah,
cameo.
Like all that stuff.
Gotta
but focus on Kylo and where he's at, what he's doing.
I agree. Brandon, did you already answer this question?
About
what do you want to see in 9?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You did.
All right.
Okay, so real quick, I want to do 2 things. I want us to rank this movie, or I want us to rate this movie, and then rank it.
Rank.
Okay.
For me, it's depending on my mood, depending on how much I can tolerate the Canto Bight Casino sequence and somewhat the Holdo sequences, I can give it anywhere between an 8 and a 9, depending on how I feel.
Okay.
I'd go with a 7.
Okay. For me, I'm going to rate it. Also, depending on how I feel, I give it an 8 to an 8.5, leaning towards an 8.5. I think ultimately, if I were to give this movie a little time and then go back to it, I think it would solidify an 8.5. But I give it like an 8.3. I feel safe about it.
So let's bring down some rankings here.
Okay, are we including Rogue One?
Yeah, sure, but no, I don't.
Because Rogue One's just at the bottom.
Yeah,
for me.
I haven't even put any thought of where I'd put that. So
no, it's at the bottom for me. I think absolutely.
I mean, once I include Rogue One, I have to make 2 separate rankings because there's a part of me that recognizes that Rogue One is more competently made than the prequels, but there's another part of me that just doesn't enjoy Rogue One as much as the prequels.
I hate Rogue One. Everything about Rogue One.
So I'm just not going to include that just to.
Yeah, I despise that movie. Okay. I want to hear Brandon's rankings first.
I think I'm gonna sit out of this one.
No, you gotta do it. Just of the 8 movies, how would you rank them off the top of your head? Your favorites. It's just a matter of opinion. Your favorite Star Wars movies from 1 to 8.
I mean, I really I saw the prequels more than I saw the originals when I was growing up.
Okay.
So, I mean,
I remember we recently watched 2 this summer. You think back to that viewing.
I mean, I'd say like 4 and 5, and then 1.
Whoa, okay.
And then, because I really did like the prequels. That's what I saw a lot. And I have a lot of affection for the movies, regardless of whether I think they were made well. And then I think 6 needs to be up there. I will not say that it's not as good as 2 and 3. And then, well, see, but then I messed up there because 7 needs to be included. And I think 8. I liked 8 better than.
And then 2 and 3 at the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Vincent, how about you?
I'm gonna go with 5 at the top as the best Star Wars movie, and 6 at the second place. So 5, 6, because 6 is for a long time been my favorite Star Wars movie, and probably not my favorite at the moment, but I've always liked 6 more than most people have. So 5, 6, 4, and right now, I mean, this is always subject to change. 8, 7. So I will put 8 above 7. So 5, 6, 4, 8, 7, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2. So 5, 6, 4, 8, 7, 3, 1, 2 is my ranking of the movies.
Okay. So I have a similar list, but I do have a 3-way tie. And I added Rogue One just because it looked pretty in my notes as I was writing it. 5, without a doubt. 4, then 6, then the 3-way tie for 7, 8, and 3.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the reason why. 7 definitely was in the number 4 spot. And this movie made me like 7 a little less. So I would put 8 above 7, but I also enjoyed watching 7 more often. It got progressively better the more times I watched it.
Yeah.
And I ended up seeing that movie like 20 times.
I saw it a lot too. I think 7 was more exciting, and 7 is overall a better paced film.
Which I agree. Now, the problem with 7, is that I don't want to rank it above episode 8.
Yeah.
Because it is just episode 4.
8 just gives me a lot more to think about.
It does for sure. But that's why I have to have them tied.
Mm-hmm.
Is because I don't know where to put these movies.
Yeah,
because,
I'm still unsure. I just had to pick one.
Yeah, I
fucking pussy with a tie.
I'm gonna have a tie.
It's fine with me.
And yeah, and the thing is that I had to put 3 in the 3-way tie because for some reason 3 just is so like it's just Star Wars too. You know, it's just very Star Wars for me.
Mm-hmm.
And normally if episode 8 wasn't in this movie, it would be 7-3. It wouldn't be a 7-3 tie, but because 8 made 7 go lower on my list, it made it tie with 3. Because 7 has a lot of questions that are just kind of like either thrown out or gone in a completely different direction, and episode 8 really, kind of touches on those things and takes them different places. So I do put 7 lower, but I can't say that I like 7 more than I like 8 because of that. But I can't say that I like 8 more than 7 because I saw 7 more times and I enjoyed it more times. And today I had the opportunity to see 8 and I didn't want to see it. That didn't happen with episode 7. So that's why I can't rank either of them higher or lower. But episode 3 just was kind of like, you know what, this was a movie too, and I would want to watch this movie, and that's why I put 3. Then I put 1. Then 2 is garbage, and Rogue One is just disgusting.
Yeah.
So that's it. Mine's 5, 4, 6, 3-way tie of 7, 8, and 3. Then episode 1. Then episode 2. Then Rogue One.
All right, well, that just about does it for our review. We've been talking for about 2.5 hours, almost as long as the film itself. So,
so feel free when this gets on Blu-ray, just put it on mute and just listen to this.
To the commentary. We didn't discuss the porgs in the whole review. We can go a whole review without talking about them. Because they're not important, People talk about those.
Cute.
I like, and you know what? I heard the other day that they're in the movie because the island that they shot on is like a conservation site for like, what are the fucking puffins? Those animals, or the little penguin looking things. And I was watching the movie today, and I might have to watch it again to make sure. But I think there is a scene where they like left in an unedited puffin. Like you could see like a little beak in the background. So I was like, all right, because they basically just like took the puffins and like put a CG like thing over them, which is the porgs. So I mean, cool, in some good ingenuity, working with the best of their circumstances, right there with the porgs.
These things are still alive?
What?
Puffins are still alive?
Yeah. You thought that was extinct?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, I
my
did.
Goodness. All right. Well,
these things do look like porgs.
Yeah, they're on the island that they filmed on, the puffins.
Oh, they're cute.
So they made them porgs. So I mean, that's cool.
I like that.
Yeah.
I didn't mind the porg. I thought I thought
I was gonna be pissed about.
I was gonna be pissed about the porgs, so I thought they were gonna have like a character or like a plot device in the movie, but they're just in it, and like Chewbacca eats one, almost eats one.
So that's why they're in there, and even the crystal critters. I mean, they connect to the story. Like it helps Poe figure out like, oh, where's the exit? Where'd they go? So like, I thought I was gonna be pissed about the animals, but I was fine with them. So
yeah, the animals are fine. I like these puffin things. I like the animal more than the porg.
Well, I think there is one in the movie. I mean, if I saw it correctly today, there looks like you can look in the background when Rey and Luke are going up the steps, and I think you can see a puffin. So
these porgs are cute though.
Puffin. All right, that's it. We'll end it right here.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for watching and listening, everyone, and
have a good night.